One. We are recording. Everybody, thank you for watching on Monday, April 21st, 2025, 2 and 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Dave Collum, who's been on here a zillion times before. If you guys go in the description, you can find the link to his Twitter. But no, we were just talking about, views dropping off on Rumble, but even Spotify, and those two companies are not intertwined, and it's all seemingly fallen off of a cliff. And your point just now was that it's either so the issue is resolved, right? Are we going to civil war or not? As well as the censorship is seemingly being reeled back on Facebook, Instagram, and I would imagine other platforms as well, which reduces the true like shining light of Rumble. It's like their user interface sucks. They don't have as many people. Like it's not nearly as polished and funded as YouTube, but their thing was you're not censored, and
Do
that
you
was
know, do you know
yeah.
if you lose revenue if someone's wielding an ad blocker? Do they see the blocked ad and
I
you
have I
not get
don't
credit for the click?
I have no idea.
Well, then I'm going to say something that may or may not be good news for you, but
Yeah, I don't care.
Brave is a better experience than the other browsers. Brave seems to cut out all the pop-ups and commercials and shits automatically. So I watch someone like if I watch a Mike Ferris interview, they can almost become unwatchable on Firefox and Brave. They're no problem.
And see, I have like no issue with that. My logic is always if you're relying on if your show relies on like a shitty browser to succeed, then it's probably not a show worth succeeding. My logic has always been if the show is good, if the content is good, if you want it, you're entertained by it,
We
you're
also, if a person's willing to watch it on Brave and not watch it on Firefox, then there's going to be no virality of your show.
no, very true. But again, I look at things where to get people's attention is such a diamond in the rough that you don't want even the simplest thing of like, you don't want it easier for them to swipe away with their thumb because that's what it really does all come down to fractions of a millisecond of people's attention. My logic is I don't care where people watch it. I don't care if someone else is streaming it on YouTube and making money and I don't know about it. To me, the golden line is am I getting people, am I getting in their brains? Are they forming
Right,
neuronal connections to go, I like Tommy, Tommy's part of my day. I don't care
right.
how it happens because to
Now
me,
you're
that's
back on
worth its
Twitter
weight.
too, is that correct? You're back
Yeah,
on Twitter,
yeah.
and um, there's a Twitter feed that haunts me. A guy named not Jim Kramer, and he disappeared in 2021. And what haunts me is I bet he died.
Probably.
And for some reason,
Just
I
stop
I
posting.
don't I don't know. Well, he could, but I've read his posts. What's your Twitter feed? I just want to make sure that something hasn't been fucked up here.
It should be underscore Tommy's podcast, TOMMYS PODCAST. I think you follow me. Maybe I'll check.
Well, I've found myself disconnected.
Yeah. Underscore Tommy's podcast, TOMMYS.
Well, here's one under not Tommy's podcast.
Well, I think that's my yeah. No, I'm not Tommy's podcast. The tag is at underscore Tommy's podcast.
Well, I go no, that just fucked up. See, I'm. This is why we're.
I've been banned so many times.
Well, that's why I'm checking now because you've been off my radar more than I would have expected. I see an at Tommy Kerrigan 5. When you say underscore, between Tommy and Kerrigan or
No.
podcast? Tom?
Underscore Tommy's podcast.
So
The front.
at underscore Tommy's podcast. This is really exciting. They've already swiped on you. There we go. But it's titled not Tommy's
Yeah, well,
podcast.
that's because I would get banned.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Well,
I just followed you. No, you weren't following me. I wasn't following you.
no, that's because we hadn't reconnected after your most recent battle with the
Yeah,
censors.
yeah. I think I'm on my sixth Twitter. Um, But yeah, in general, I mean, I think regardless if it's right or wrong, my logic has always just kind of been like it's my responsibility and mine alone to build the show. I don't care, I could sit here all day and be like, well, if people use Brave and then the censorship and the to me it's like if you find music that's worth it, you will search for that song for fucking 5 hours. You're like, where did I if it's worth it, it's worth it. And to me it's I also started watching Rogan and like December 2011 because I knew him as the Fear Factor guy. I was in college, I
Right.
was studying, and it was just like, oh, I didn't even know he had a podcast. I was just finding clips on YouTube. I didn't know what it was, but they're just having these open conversations, and it would shift.
Real unprofessional, real sort of dark studio,
Yeah,
real.
and like I would just listen to that while doing organic chemistry, and I thought it was just so fucking great because it would go from like heartfelt conversation to CIA to the galaxies back down to like MMA, and I was like it was so unstructured, but I just loved it, and I would listen to it, and then over years I think I didn't find out it was a show until like a year later, and I just listened to it 2014, 15, 16. And I remember the first time I felt it was getting big is when Alex Jones first went on episode 911. That was 2016. And then it's just gone from there. And so for me, I'm like, that's something where the conversation was just so good. I sought it out and it wasn't behind a paywall. His first sponsor was the Fleshlight. And now I look at it and it's
You
like
got to be kidding me, really?
100% was the Fleshlight. They would air it on, I think, Ustream. I don't even know
The
if that
fact that I
website's
know
still
what
up.
that is appalling.
But
Um,
my idea is like I look at that versus like I mean it was a significant thing that like Trump was on the podcast before the I'm like so to me I'm like that alone is like there's my
there's
exhibit
some
A.
big breakthroughs like Tulsi Gabbard, for
Sure,
example, I think
but it
was
was
an
over a
important.
decade and it was
I
just
know.
good YouTube to off YouTube to Spotify to back on YouTube. To
And
me I'm like
$500 million later.
and what was it? I mean, he just fucking worked his ass off. He did, and it was never behind a paywall. You never hit a wall to
Right.
where you went.
Right.
And other people do paywalls and they make money. They don't make as much as Rogan. So that's where I look at it. I'm like
Right.
consistently and just do good shows and don't be a slime ball. Don't hawks, snake oil. And I think it's a long-term investment to do it that way. There are quicker ways, I think, to get to a payday, but I think you limit yourself. If
Well, yeah, scientifically, I did exactly the same thing where I switched into a field that was considered to be an unusual move. Some with Schadenfreude said I'd fail, some out of concern said I'd fail, but and it probably took me 15 years to really get the tires on the road. I got tenure and stuff, but
yeah,
it was a long haul, and then at some point I reached a point where I said I've really gotten to where I wanted to get to, but it was a very long haul.
but it's you have to ask yourself like what is it all like why did you like I didn't embark on this because I had nothing going on. I had
Don't
got
do bullshit, right? Don't
the
do
thing is
bullshit.
I had gotten I've gotten accepted into medical school out of college. I had a girlfriend. I was like, I could have gone and just been a doctor and like that's a good life. And I was like, I know I wanna love what I do. I wanna be my own boss. And so I always have to remind myself, like, why am I doing this? There's so much easier ways to make it. I would probably make more money per hour if I just went and worked at a gas station. Like the hours I have to put in to make this thing work.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why did I start? Well, because right now
I
I'm
bailed
at
on
work.
med school too. I bailed on med school too.
But it's to me, I'm like, is it worth it? Yeah, right now talking with you, this is my job. I'm clocked in right now. And I'm like, yeah,
Well, you should be paid more if you have to talk to me. That should be that.
I'll,
You should get high pay. I was
I,
supposed to have dinner with the president of the university the other night, and he had to bail because he's searching for $1 billion that were taken away from us. Um, and that would have been a great dinner. But I was going to say to him, you should be paid more. Whatever you're paid is not enough.
yeah, but I
And
also feel like that applies to everyone, and I don't think anyone's ever felt like they're appreciated. So more and more, I just try to tell myself like, no one gives. That's my favorite motivational line ever: is no one cares, work harder. It just no, there's no fluff, there's no metaphysical, there's no. I don't even know who said it. You don't need to have some name, George Washington, Jeff Bezos. It's just, and it's the truest thing, and I know it's true because I don't like hearing it. No one cares, work harder. That's how I know it's like when you're trying to diet and someone's finally like, "Hey, you fat fuck, it's calories in, calories out. Doesn't matter what gear you have. Doesn't matter if you're on, XYZ workout plan. It just doesn't matter."
yeah, yeah.
Um, but so I was thinking about something that actually popped into my head in the middle of the night last night, and I think they're both discussions you and I have had. I know you and I both have a fascination, kind of awe with like, the 1980s technology of Star Wars, of strategic defense initiative, and how
Hmm.
science fiction it was then. And that's what was,
Hmm.
I think you and I have read a lot of the same documents. And looking at that, and then I look at just kind of how bellicose we've been with Russia in the last several years. And my logic, I mean, the low-hanging fruit is Biden, Kamala are stupid. Yeah, they're not in charge though. Like that's not. I'm like, what's really going on? And the best I could conclude is that us, the peons, don't have the full picture. And the full picture is that we have
We
some.
have such a tiny, tiny fraction of the full picture.
And so let's just theoretically say, as a thought exercise, let's say they had figured out some form of Star Wars with like an insanely high degree of effectiveness, like
Okay.
99.9%. That would, if you didn't know about that, you would think that they're just like walking us to World War III, unless you know that there was a weapon system, or maybe not defensive. Maybe we have an offensive weapon. Maybe we can do truly instantaneous first strike. Maybe we can teleport nukes. I think that applies to if we don't know at the very top the true story and the true scope of Epstein slash Pizzagate slash the broad idea of pedophilia as blackmail, then we can't possibly make accurate sense of the battlefield we see. If you don't know about SDI, nothing else makes sense. You're like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing
So
that?
I think it was 2 years ago I did a reasonable dive. They call it a deep dive, undermines people who do deep dives. Um, into the DEWs, the directed energy
Yeah.
weapons. That was inspired by the rumors that Lahaina fires were started by them, and
Hmm.
I'm not convinced by that story. I'm more convinced by the Quebec fires being started by
Oh,
them
the yeah, that satellite.
because there was the fires all appeared simultaneously, so it wasn't a plume in which it caused fires downwind to start.
And it
They
wasn't
all went
like
out.
it
They all
wasn't
went
like
out.
all those things happened in like 10 square feet either, where you could go,
No, it
well,
was
maybe it was, yeah,
350 diameter. It was
miles.
everywhere.
Yeah.
350-mile diameter space where, crudely speaking, about 25 fires started absolutely simultaneously.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, so I started reading Rand reports from 40 years ago and things like that, and Department of Defense reports, and these are all outside the paywall, 40 years old. So you got to figure, and it was still fascinating reading how they poke through the atmosphere to get to their target and use a
Reef
double
phase and
laser, and
yeah,
exactly. And so I concluded that we must have some pretty amazing DEWs. We must.
absolutely. And I
Yeah.
mean, and then there's what is it? The one that always fucks with me is the Shiva Star slash Marauder. It started in the
I
70s.
don't know what that is. What is that? Explain that.
Man, I'll fucking pull it. I'll pull it because it still just melts my brain. I'm gonna pull it up to make sure I have it correctly. Shiva Star weapon. Yeah, first thing on
Is that
Wikipedia.
SHIVA?
Yeah, Shiva Star, originally known as Shiva, and it was later called Marauder. Built in the 1970s, blah blah blah, as part of the Strategic Defense Initiative. They used it to. They were going to use it as almost like a railgun to shoot projectiles, and then they found that they could still technically shoot projectiles, but the projectiles were plasma. It's not a laser. They
Right.
do shoot projectiles. It shifted to the name Marauder as part of the SDIF between 1989 and 1995. The plasma projectiles will be shot at an expected speed of 3,000 kilometers per second by 1995. By
So that's
2000, they had
that's that's what, Mach 3 or something
no,
ish.
no, 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 3,000 kilometers per second.
Oh, I was thinking
Yeah,
three
so
thousand
no, no,
feet
no,
per
no, no,
second.
no, no.
Oh,
So
feet.
listen, so
Oh my
listen, so
God. Oh
listen.
my God. Oh,
And by
okay. No, that's
2000,
I'm off by three orders of magnitude, right?
and here it is. By 2000, they had achieved 10,000 kilometers a second, or 3.3% the speed of light.
That's fast.
And that's declassified as what we had in 2000.
That's fast.
And then the project goes black,
But
and
it's not light. It's not
is
light. It's
shooting
got
plasma tor
mass.
is shooting project or has mass. The project became declassified, and nothing else has been published since 95, other than the 2000 snippet. So
I
it
think
went
it would
back to
be
classification.
it would, yeah, it would be stupid to assume they just stopped working on
Oh
it
yeah,
when
no,
they.
hey, we're gonna classify this. We're just, but hey, we're gonna mop up. We're gonna shut this thing down.
So the other possibility is that all this shit that globalism
Is
is
propaganda, or this is
well, is
propaganda,
already here. The globalism's already here, and this is all just kayfabe for the
and
masses.
they're just slowly warming us up
That's
to.
right. And the Putin and Trump and all these guys, they're
There's a
all
very good chance
just
it's been finished for 30 years.
right, and that the guys who run the world are running the world.
Yeah. Yeah, but to me, I'm like, if that's the case, then that's the case. So for me, I don't really find it much. I don't put a lot of time into thinking that because if that's the case, then it's over. So I like
Well, it
discussing
is. I
the
actually think
alternative.
it's possible that the digital world, the appearance of it, may have guaranteed authoritarianism. Guaranteed, as in like once the digital world was sort of invented, the internet and that shit, that there was no way there wasn't going to be an emerging authoritarian global state.
Well, we could also look at in terms of, evolutionary bottlenecks. You have the nuclear one, you have the pandemic one, you have all those. It might also be something but that it coincides if you run the simulation a trillion times. By the time things like Shiva Star are capable, so is the internet. And the internet ensures totalitarianism, but totalitarianism might be the only way you ensure not having just a Star Wars Duke out that fries the
Yeah, yeah,
earth.
that might be the compromise,
It
right?
might be that that's the safety mechanism. It's with
Yeah.
with the Kevlar vest comes the armor piercing rounds, and it's just what it is. The universe doesn't care. It doesn't there's 1776 isn't we love it, but it's not like encoded into intelligent life.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I just read a New York Times article. This is only I'm told I'm a tangential thinker, which means basically I need ADHD drugs. New York Times article by one of my colleagues in economics, an assistant professor, who inspired me to send him an email and say, "Here's some thoughts." He's talking about how the global economy has been stagnating for many years, and it turns out that I have recommended on many podcasts reading Robert Gordon's book on wealth creation, and that's exactly what he's been saying. You got on top of that, you got the Strauss and Howe's fourth turning,
Of
which
course, yeah.
says no matter what the trigger is every 80 years, we're going to lose our shit and do bad shit for about 20 straight years. And then you got the Zion model, which is interesting because he basically says the population of the world's collapsing. And Elon Musk talks about like it's the most disastrous thing. I have a different view on that. My view is that any situation like we're in, where you have to create more players to fund the existing players, is a Ponzi scheme, and as a consequence, this idea that we need to keep growing the population strikes me as futile, and that maybe we should white knuckle a population decrease, which would consume less resources, less oil, less all sorts of things, and go through several decades and hope like hell we don't kill each other. By that model, curiously, Japan may be in the lead because they're the ones who are furthest down this population decline.
Why does the Ponzi scheme have to stop? Would it be? I get what you're saying.
They
Path of
all
least,
do.
but wouldn't path of least? No, I don't doubt that. Wouldn't path of least resistance be, start inhabiting the moon, start inhabiting Mars to keep
No,
the pot?
I no, I no, I think that's too resource intensive. Actually, who wants to live on the moon, right? Let's start with that. Who wants
Fucking
to live
people
on the
who were
moon?
born on the moon and don't know anything else. Fuck off.
I know, but it, the moon is like a genetic saving ground, or Mars, where you put people so that the species doesn't die. I don't think we're going to kill off the species. I think humans are probably going to,
But what
find nooks and crannies to hang out in.
I think if you were to, you'd have to weigh it. Like you just have to get some like actuaries and just like weigh it and be like, it's resource intensive, but it's actually going to be way more of a struggle to white knuckle a population reduction. It's like what company was it? There was some
But
fucking
I just don't think you can. So if we're growing a
unless
population
they
some
take some of
percent
this
per
SDI,
year,
unless they take some of this SDI tech out and go, we need this to save the Ponzi scheme. And the people that are controlling the Ponzi scheme would theoretically control the classified black objects. So they
Well,
might
I
go
just think they go with the Deagle model and just
and just
wipe
kill
out
them
a big
all.
chunk. Yeah, just kill them all and start over.
Well, I think they would weigh it. They'd see which ones eat. There would be no emotion involved.
Well,
They would just,
killing them all is the easiest.
yeah, well, then they'll do that, which they've probably
You
already
know,
started.
vaccination,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Vaccination wars, things like that. So, but I do think that a systematic, not shit a pickle over dropping population, but just let it slowly sort of rot away. And the vaccine could be precisely that. They could be okay. Let's sterilize some percentage of the population and such that reproduction rates are lower. By the way, Gates gets a raw deal on something. He stands up in a TED talk and he talks about how with good vaccines we'll have a reduction in the population. Everyone thinks he just admitted we're killing people. No, what he actually admitted is that if you have a high survival rate of your children, you tend not to have as many.
Yeah.
And so,
Sure.
so, so that gets misinterpreted. Not,
Sure.
not that in any way I want to defend Bill
No, no,
Gates.
no, but no, you got to be intellectually honest. I mean, somebody can make a right point. It doesn't matter who it is. But I mean, yeah, and I thought about that, why not was happening. I'm like, well, if you outright had people dropping like fly more than like the myocarditis shit, if you had them really, there would be open revolt. People would lose their
Well,
mind.
we don't, no, no, no. But here's the problem. For
But
example, I don't know when my blood pressure went up, but my blood pressure sometime in the last 5 years, there was some window where it went up to like 180. And I was steady as can be for decades at
yeah.
like 110. And so what we don't know is how many years each of us who got vaccinated have been taken off their
No, no,
lives.
well, and that's what I'm getting at is so I kind of walked it out in my own mind back in 2021, 2022. And no, how you would do it is you want something that you don't realize has happened until it's way in the you'd want to it's like if like it'd be like right now if we found out that the birth weights that are dropping now were from like a 1940s program. The
Right,
people who did it are dead. The people who suffered the most, you'd be like, ah, that was my
right,
grand.
right.
By
Just
now, it's like if
MK Ultra,
by now
right,
you find out about like the Zimmerman or the Zimmerman telegram for World War One or Pearl Harbor. By the time you start to figure out it's like my grandparents are dead. There's kind of no aggrieved victims, and you go, that is bad, but it's in the past. That's how you would do it. You wouldn't
right.
have people putting the picture together till 2050, and by the time people like me are screaming about it, they'd be like, dude, that was 30 years ago. They're all
But this is
dead.
why I think they blew the COVID story a bit. Yeah. Now it's possible the COVID story, I'm misreading that too. It's possible the goal was to demoralize us.
Hmm.
And they did a fine job. I think a huge percentage of the population is still suffering from the COVID
Mentality.
event and the COVID lockdowns and all the things that came with it. And I'm not even sure they know it, but I get this feeling that people are kind of walking through life a little bit more zombie-like than they used to, a little bit less optimistic, a little bit, and the problem is there are too many people. So if the goal was to demoralize us, then they did a fine job. If the goal was to pull something off and not have us get mad, they might have overplayed it because I think that at some point someone could really shit a pickle over the fact that we're vaccinating 6-month-old babies and stuff with a toxic vaccine, things like that, and pregnant women who shouldn't have been vaccinated, and myocarditis problems, and they told us, and they didn't give us a choice and stuff like that. So if they played it a little bit softer touch, if the goal was to pull it off without getting caught, then they overplayed it, in my opinion.
In terms of demoralization, no, I would agree with you. I think in general, there's like there's
A
and
malaise.
not to like conflate the two because one is based on legitimate trauma, but I don't know. You look at guys coming back from like World War II and they got like the GI Bill and the little starter homes in Long Island, and you go, yeah, I would imagine after Iwo Jima you come back and you're like, I have a bed and a dishwasher. You're like, and Dad, I want more. They're like, shut the fuck up. We keep your
They
head down. And I think you have
right.
that. I think you probably have that from COVID. You have a lot of people that are just like, you know what, man, there aren't 2020 riots right now. Not yet. They're not, rolling out this thing. We're not sure if it was a Chinese bioweapon. I think a lot of people are like, shut the fuck up and take your job at Office Depot. keep your head down. Oh, fair
Well, I
enough.
think the people paying attention would most likely say that it wasn't even Chinese. So I think
Well, I
I
think that it's no. I went no. I early on I was Chinese, and now I'm like, oh no, it was
no, it's
whatever.
Ralph Barrick and
It was the
Ralph
United
Barrick
States.
and Dazak
It
and
was the United States. But I also think like so let's
Peter
so,
Dazak.
so when people we always attack Biden, right? And I'm a fan of Biden. I've voted for Trump, but you look at Biden, in the record job numbers, it's like, well, you shut them all down in the pandemic. That doesn't really count as growth to come back. I do think it's fascinating that you don't see that same critique of Trump, right? When the tariff thing, like 2 days later, they're like, Tesla just announced their biggest 1 day gain in 20 years. I'm like, that's not real though.
One day gain of the price.
Yeah, it's same with Apple. They said
Yeah.
Apple had their best day in 30 years. I'm like, well, it's because the day before you had a
Well, here's
fucking
a
worse
stat
day.
that people should keep in mind as they go through the current. Today is not a good day for risk takers. Right now, my portfolio is 6% above the S&P today, um, because I have a portfolio that was explicitly built to try to not track the S&P. And so the days the S&P was up and my portfolio was down, I was okay with, because I'm going, I do not want it tracking the S&P. And so now this year, I'm having a phenomenal year this year, investing wise, because of this. Um, the What people should keep in mind is that at one point, and it was an article from maybe 2006 or something, they pointed out that the 13 biggest days in the NASDAQ history were all during the 2000 to 2003 bear market. All of them, all 13. So and what inspired that idea to come back was I got an email from a money manager who does control some money I have, which I inherited from my dad, which is why I don't have control of it. Um, and they were talking about what happens if you miss the 10 best days in the market. And I go, well, that's like saying what happens to your handicap if you miss the 10 worst rounds of the mark in your golf game, right? It's just insanity. So I emailed him back and I said, look, let me just mention a few things. If you miss the 10 worst days, it makes a difference too, and if you took the 10 best, the 10 worst, and average them, it kind of comes out in the wash. So it's a stupid argument. But then I pointed out these 13 biggest days in the NASDAQ. And I said, if you miss those, you not only miss the 13 biggest days, but you miss an 80% correction by missing those 13 biggest days in the NASDAQ history.
Hmm.
And so it's a bullshit argument. It's a acutely bad argument. So you get hellacious rallies during bad bear markets. That's when you get them. You don't get that wall of worry argument's not a bad argument. When the market's in a bull market, it tends to crawl its way along, and you gain a little bit each day, and you kind of don't notice. So it's only at the end when it gets batshit crazy, which has got me nervous about gold, because gold's acting batshit crazy now. So
What's it at now? At that?
oh, it's up like $100 today, I think.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's I don't know, maybe it's down, it's up $97 right now, according to 321 Gold. You get different numbers depending on when they start the day.
Let's
Um,
see. 34.24 right now.
yeah, it's and meanwhile the Nasdaq's down 550 points, 3.5%. So, and
So the kind of broad idea I was bringing up, though, job returning after job shitting, huge days. It's like, yeah, but we self-inflicted, took the market down the day before. It doesn't really count. I think in general, you might also have that in terms of the demoralization aspect of COVID that you brought up. Right now, it's I would, who knows, maybe I'm a sucker. It could very well be a naive sucker. It's a lot of seemingly big wins early on. Trump has sealed up the border. We're not doing the tranny shit anymore. We're actually, they're kicking out all the fucking woke shit from the mill. All well and good, but you're like, oh, we're making strides. But then I start to look at them like, no, we're just returning to the baseline of like what like 10 years ago was. And you start to wonder,
and by the way, that you haven't even stopped that completely. I mean, you can
yeah,
now call someone a retard again. That's good.
yeah, we're moving slowly, but we're going back up to like what we once had.
Now, we started from a very elevated state of crazy.
that also might just be life. We might be describing all of human civilization as like
Well, I think
trying to
that's right.
return to a decent level of life. So
But the absurdity of the transgender movement and all that woke shit was really off the charts. I think that was a social contagion of a level
that
that
had hit a
I'm
weird
unfamiliar
psychosis.
with.
That had hit weird psychosis that
That was
I
that
don't
was
think they
Reverend
were
Jim
controlling it. I think it
that
took off.
that was Reverend Jim Jones crap. That was real Kool-Aid in the jungle
Yeah.
stuff.
Maybe you need that though. Maybe that's how you know.
That's the blow off top. I'll tell you what I think the blow off top might have been. Um, and I called this actually. I think I probably called it on Twitter. When male boxers were beating the shit out of female boxers in the Olympics. I think the absurdity of the transgender athletics story, which by the way, I did a Twitter poll once that said, should biological men be able to compete in women's sports? Got 5,000 votes. That's a pretty good poll for
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah.
98.6% said no. So society had long ago figured out that this is a stupid idea. We just didn't know how to get out of
It
it.
is
We just didn't know how to stop it.
that is like better comedy than anything you could write though. That for women's rights, we're gonna have men not only taking the chance to compete away, we're gonna have men essentially doing domestic abuse and call it
Right.
women's rights.
Well, I think they call it Olympic wife beating.
Whatever it is sometimes, but maybe you gotta hit that. I mean, I don't know. I think about like look at like, evolutionary chains of like, when you have huge bursts of evolution and whatever, be it single celled or Precambrian. You do when something changes and the biosphere changes, you do a shotgun approach and the trees break off. And then a lot of them
Right.
die because those are not the fit things. It might be that like the fourth turning, there are social Darwinian chains that break off maybe every 100 years. And with the last one, it was like, let's do the Nazi thing. And they're like, all right, maybe not. And then in the 60s, it's like, let's do the free love thing. Like, all right, maybe not.
The
Yeah.
60s are tricky, by the way.
Well, because that was engineered by the
What did I?
CIA, but it's
Well, that's right. Like Gloria Steinem was CIA,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. So like
If Gloria
that doesn't
Steinem
really
was
count. But
CIA, you've got a funny problem there,
yeah,
right?
well, that one doesn't in the same way of saying it's a Chinese bioweapon from DARPA. Yeah, and I get it, but it
Right.
might be that there's like much like the financial fourth turnings. Maybe every once in a while we just throw everything at the wall because the system is changing. We go, what is the most fit thing? Maybe if we digest cyanic acid and rubber will be a better bacteria. That didn't really work. This one does, carbohydrates and sludge, and that kind of still seems to be the tried and true thing. It might be that we do these social and they sound crazy when they're happening in hindsight until, of course, one of them hits. And then you go, well, that was the big bet. And every once in a while, maybe you got to get a little crazy and
Well,
go,
so I made that argument probably 15 years ago where I think there is a case for occasionally creating a big equity market bubble. Not intentionally necessarily, but the positive is that you try every batshit crazy idea imaginable, and
yeah,
ones that would not have gotten tried.
yes,
And
precisely.
the problem is we've had three of them now in 25 years, and that's too quick.
And then,
That's too quick.
yeah, no, I mean, but that's what you'd have, and that's like what would make things like Skunk Works so revolutionary is they would just throw shit at the wall. And instead of like, it's just going to be a normal jet, it'd be like, what if it went Mach 3 and fucking didn't even seal closed? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know. Maybe it'll work. And sometimes there's a lot of them that don't work. What about stealth? What about the idea of stealth where like
Right.
post SR-71 where it's been tried and true, like, hey, faster, higher, that's the winning formula. Then we try something along where like, what if it just looked like shitty origami? And what would that, how fast would it go? Very slow. Would it carry any weapons? Almost none. What's the point of it? You can't see it. Oh. And every once in a while, and for that one that works, you don't see the 99 models that were just thrown out. Yeah, we made one out of, I don't know, used condoms and a rubber ducky. That one failed, killed the test pilot. Like, you don't hear about those. But that's how you get those. So when you go, how did they know to create stealth? Well, they threw 100 crazy options, and one of them
Well,
worked,
it's
and it
like
looks cheap.
evolutionary biology. How did you know to make an eye? And you go,
Is that's the thing is, and it looks like genius in hindsight. Well, it looks like genius because that's the thing that worked, and we've now accepted as the thing that works. You don't know that though.
no,
Like
you don't. No, a lot of
exactly.
failures along the way.
Like look at the early planes and like the not
It was
between.
like the end of the War of the Worlds when they talk about the survival of humans depended on all the deaths and the failures and stuff along the way, and that's what ultimately took down the aliens.
Is that kind of just, and it always makes perfect sense in hindsight. It always,
Right,
because we've accepted it as the thing that, the truth goes through three stages. First it's mocked, then it's violently rejected, and then finally it's accepted as self-evident.
right,
Like it's not just accepted, it's accepted as like, duh.
right. Of course.
And so, but when it doesn't work, yeah, we look back and we're like, yeah, man, that was a weird thing. Remember when everyone's hair was blue and they were like chopping their tits off and posting pictures on Twitter? That
I
was
saw a great meme where someone said, I can't, it was different generations. One said, I can't believe I wore bell bottoms that went down. And then the
like, I
final
can't
one was,
believe I cut my dick off.
I can't believe I cut my dick off. Yeah. And I'm going, boy, that was funny.
Great.
That
Yeah,
was
that was
funny.
that was a high yield gamble. They really went for it, and
Yeah.
it
They
didn't
went for the
work.
gold on that one.
They wanted to get 1,000x, and it didn't work. But you have those things, so it might be that like you have like a fourth turning type thing where it's financial. You have the
Oh,
wild
it's
social,
also social.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then you have the social wild contagions, and but then there's like a, and I'm terrible at math, but I'm sure this is like, I don't know, calculus or something. But then it's like the pattern of patterns, and it's like you're saying we have
Right.
three of them in the last 20 years. That's not good. These are supposed to be very rare
That's the
layers
problem.
you shoot up, and we're looking at it going, yeah, we had three SOSs in the last 20 years, and normally you're supposed to have one a century. Then you go, okay, so what's even? Do you have to map that on 1,000 years? Is
Well, it's
that
like creative destruction. Creative
yeah,
destruction where you replace Blockbuster with Netflix,
yeah,
right? Something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
The
yeah.
problem is if the generations that persist for too short a time, you burn incredible resources and burn incredible, just call it capital. And you've the generations along the way have to sort of pay for themselves. So Blockbuster
Yeah.
has to make some money and do, or you're just building stupid shit and if you don't get it, say okay, so you build a house and every 5 years you bulldoze and build it better. You're going to go
You got to get
broke.
mileage out of it.
You've got each generation has to somehow fund the next generation, or you go broke.
Yeah. And then, long enough when they do get replaced, you go,
And we're
well,
not doing that now. And
yeah.
the reason we're not doing it is because monetary policy has been too loose. And so it's been too easy to burn huge amounts of capital on stupid shit stuff.
So everything we're talking about then, yeah, and then you get to a point where it is financially, incentivized that you do once the house is 100 years old, you're like, well, now we're spending more on air conditioning because the insulation sucks, and then it makes sense that you got to build a new one versus the you're building a new house every 12 months. It's fucked. All these things we're talking about, social, financial, creative destruction, if they're all increasing. I mean, it seems like they're all rotating
Accelerating.
around. I don't
Yeah.
know what, the lip of the singularity. The techno that it might be that it's pulling all of them in, and we can't understand it right now. But in 100 years, you might go, oh yeah, and you might look at other planets and go, yeah, around the singularity, yeah, no, our species started getting crazy. They were chopping off their tentacles, like it's a madness. But it's really it.
Chopping off their testicles.
But really, what if it's actually not madness? It's the same theme just being shown everywhere. The lip of the event horizon. Everything's going crazy.
Well, the other haunting thing is that civilization has evolved from the Stone Age between two glaciers, the most recent one and whichever one comes next.
Yeah.
And if we don't figure it out, we're not going to do it again because we have sucked all the energy out of the ground.
Yeah.
And so if we don't solve the energy problem legitimately, which means not these fucking windmills, not these
No,
fucking
it means
solar panels and shit
fusion.
like that,
Yeah.
we need some sort of nuclear. Nuclear's next.
It's
Period. It
it's
always
nuclear
has been
period. End
next.
of the day, it
It's
cannot be
always been
argued.
next. It's always been next, and we somehow got thrown off that. If we somehow, and by the way, the solar cycles tell us we're about to get cold again. Not necessarily ice age cold, but we're about to turn it into a cold snap, and it's going to be one of these holy fuck, we need to do chemtrails to block the sun to keep the rays in so that the earth warms or something.
Yeah,
It's going to be the same absurd argument backwards.
that also could be. It might be like the two glacial periods if you put them on, a, a chronology time, you could say between them as you approach the end and you still haven't. It starts getting crazier and crazier. You're down to the last 2 minutes of the Super Bowl, and you're down. You start doing crazier trick plays, fucking, fake punts. You start getting a little more wild because you have to. It might be that there is some subconscious biological thing that no one's even controlling, but it's like the buzzer's about to go off, and that's the next ice age. You gotta start getting a little crazy, and it bleeds into all aspects of life, including dyeing your hair purple. But the
So
meta
the
picture is
interesting thing is this is I'll give you the name and I'm sure you can guess the plot. And that is Cochrane.
who?
He invents warp drive.
Oh,
And if you remember the Star Trek movie where he invents warp drive,
I've never seen any of
um,
it.
oh, it turns out that they're living, it's in the future, and they're living in like these really modern, primitive housing. So it's like Quonset huts, these little modern looking Quonset huts, but a very small sort of footprint world. And then this guy invents warp drive, and up comes the next big thing. And so he gets sort of credit for bringing us out of this futuristic agrarian society. And you could end up there. But I do think it's pretty odd that there is going to be another glacier. And on the other side of that, there's going to be no fossil fuels in the ground. There's going to be no natural gas. There's going to be no coal. There's going to be none of that shit, none of the resources. So if we don't get it right this time, that is it. It's game over.
Yeah. That means that the generation of Earth as a I don't know, novelty engine didn't work. But the universe
Well,
survived.
life will be fine. Life
That's
will
what I
be
mean.
fine.
And that's for us. In terms of the universe, they're like, yeah, but I got 100 zillion other Earths cooking right now. They got a big portfolio.
No, there's
They're
no
not that
question.
they're not that
There's no
worried about it.
question.
So and I was thinking like, what if that's why we're seeing a rise in autism? Like, what if it really is? And I said this, I know RFK came out and said it was the environment, but I think I said this like 2 years ago on a show. Like, what if this is life, knowing that we're reaching kind of the end of our runway, and so we're just creating these like different minds that look at things differently, and we're like, we need more of these crazy engineers. Enough of the pencil pushers. We need autistic people. We need Elon Musk. We need crazy people. And yeah, maybe some will go too far and will be schizophrenic and will shoot up a school. That's no good. But you might be like, I mean, what do they do when the company's on the
No,
rocks?
I
They
just
bring in the
watched a
crazy engineer.
video. I just watched a video that connected all this famous serial killers together as I'd been thinking about this, but it really did a good job of connecting serial. It's called some Crime to Kill is a book. I haven't read it yet, but there's videos based on it, and it connects Son of Sam and all these famous and Ted Bundy, all these guys. It connects them all together in a Whitney Webb sort of way, and and uh, and so what a strange world that is of every one of those motherfuckers. David Berkowitz apparently was so connected. He was not just Son of Sam, and there was not just one Son of Sam. There were many,
It
and,
might,
and things like that.
I don't
And
know if you,
and so that was such a tangent, but
no,
I
no,
had
no,
to
no,
say
no,
that.
no, no. The other day I saw a meme, and it was like, I don't know, it was like the 6 hour Glock headquarters or something, and it's like, all right, sales are slumping. Like, we need a new pistol design. Then, head engineer presses the intercom. Janet, could you send in the little train full of cocaine? And they get all the engineers and the boy. Okay, everyone get blown out, and then we came up with this pistol, and it's like but it might be like, hey, we're on the rocks. We need a hot product. What do we do? And the mind at large, the Gaia, the bio, whatever, is like, fucking start making them a little weird. Maybe they'll think of something new. But
Well, I
it's
think we can do the nuke thing fast enough that's not that this next
we
ice
we
age
we
will
can do it, but
we
we
can.
haven't. And so the biosphere doesn't know that. It's going, they
Well, see,
haven't found a
I think we
solution.
do in the sense that about 3 years ago when the pipeline got blown up and shit, um, I said, okay, all we need is one winter where people freeze their ass off and they'll say, put a nuke in my fucking backyard,
Yeah. And
right?
why aren't they?
I think we're starting to.
And I was gonna say, like, So one, and it's not really what I believe, but one argument could be like people have been so indoctrinated to not want nukes because we, the power elite, have indoctrinated them to not want nukes so we can keep doing the oil drilling thing. That maybe they need like an Overton window shift. Maybe they need a false flag. I think we're at a point though where we don't even need a winter of it. They could just come out and say, I mean, look how
Well,
quickly they
that's what they
turned.
did. That's what they did with AI. I
Yeah,
think AI is a Trojan horse to bring in nukes.
yeah. Power
They put
generation. Sure, yeah. Power of the
that's right.
compute.
So they say, "Oh, AI is phenomenal. Oh, we need energy. Let's do nukes," and everyone seems happy. Oh, yeah, yeah, we need AI, therefore we need nukes. I'm going. What if someone said, "Look, let's take this AI buzz. Let's use it to get the nukes. It's time."
What's weird to me is like why they normally when you have to do like a psychological operation, it's because you're doing something that is against the people's best interest. So let's say, how do we get people to not want nukes and instead want oil? You'd have to psychologically brainwash them. This is something weird because the thing they want is actually the objective right move. Who are they trying to?
But I'm not sure the SOPs are always what they don't, what's not good for them. I think it's what they wouldn't themselves support. So this is like a giving someone chemo, right? You said
Sure.
this is how you're going to feel. They go, I don't want it. And you go, yeah, but you got to
But you
get it.
gotta, but the thing is right now, I feel like if anyone, like, I feel like there's no need for this is just me. I feel like they don't need a Trojan. I think if they came out right now and were like, we're gonna do this, we could end oil in a decade. Five new fission plants in every state, or 100 new plants per state for the next decade. Very few people, and the way I look at it is when you look at people who are so radically for, climate change and green energy, you can have them without a moment's pause start attacking Elon Musk, who is the electric car get us off this planet
Yeah, I
guy.
know. It's amazing how quickly they did
To
that, isn't
me,
it?
to me, I go, oh, the psyops can be very quickly turned off. We do not.
Oh, truly unbelievable. Truly unbelievable
Shouldn't
how
they
fast
be
that
looking
was.
at that and be going, oh, we don't have to walk in nuclear. We can just tweet out today, nuclear energy is good. It fights racism.
Yeah. I
The
think we're
download
so
is done
I
amazing.
think we're so brainwashable.
It is
Um,
insane.
so with that said, I think they can bring in nukes when they want. I totally think
Why need a
whenever
Trojan horse? Why need
well, I
any
think it's so here's a question for you.
safe
Do you
face? I don't know.
in the two limits, if you listen to some guy like Doomberg, who I know who he is, and he's not only a very smart guy, but was very highly connected in that world. So Doomberg has tremendous resume if you know who he is. Um, and he thinks we're awash in fossil fuels. And then you got other guys, a lot of them, who think that we are, you know, tapping pretty deep into the earth to get them. And I hate going against Doomberg because he's that smart. But I'm going, if we're drilling in the Arctic and 2 miles below the Gulf of Mexico stuff, oil, this is not Jed Clampett anymore, right? This is not some guy digging a 50-foot well in Pennsylvania and out spews a gusher, right?
Yeah.
And there's some reason that, and even if it's abiotic oil, which I don't buy that model, but again, some smart guys are starting to talk about it again. Um, Even if it's abiotic oil, it's still getting harder and harder to get, and it's getting the energy return on it's getting lower and lower and lower. And so then the question is, where do you stand on this? Do you think resource depletion of this type is a big issue or not?
Someone somewhere knows. I don't think it's really something to be in Steve Coll, Coll, his book Private Empire, they talk about ExxonMobil's like true documents on where the oil are. And there's a funny quote, even like Dick Cheney goes, oh, we don't have access to that. That's above presidential. They keep that close to the chest. Kind of saying like this is, and even in
Right.
their
What
documents,
was the
they
name of that book? What's the name of that book?
Private Empire by Steve Coll. I've read it twice in the last 3 years. It's so fucking good on Audible.
Okay.
It's so good. Um,
Oh, it's on Audible too?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
fantastic.
It's
Oh,
fucking dude.
fantastic.
It's
I'm a
so
total
good.
audiophile because I
Dude,
read like a third grader.
dude. No, me too. I have to do. It's so great. Like Putin visits Bush's like ranch in 2002 or something, and he's like, "Do you think he's like if we had whatever their state oil company is, he's like maybe if you pressured Exxon." And Bush looks at him and goes, "Nobody pressures Exxon." You're just like, "God damn." But like,
Well, this is also the definition of fascism too,
yeah,
when
yeah, yeah,
corp
yeah.
but one could argue it's always fascism.
It's always been. That's the thing is like it's not that it's secretly. It's
It's
always
not like the guys who control the resources of the world didn't run the world.
they've always been. We're just kind of figuring it out now. It's
Right.
not that Santa didn't die. You found out he was never there.
By the way, I wrote about this last year. I think I was wondering if there was a reason why Hitler um, partook in the Holocaust tactically. Now you can say, well, he hates Jews. Okay, he's a sick fuck. Okay, you could
Yeah,
say it
but the
was to
use of
rally.
resources, yeah, it's
Yeah, the question is why the Holocaust, and it wasn't to rally the Germans because at some level it was off radar, so it
Mhm.
wasn't serving that purpose.
And they already had fucking brainwashed. They were already all in.
So it what clicked is the mega bankers financed the Russian Revolution and the Soviet Union. They
Hmm.
of course finance every country everywhere.
Yeah,
Um, and it struck me as possible. I started rattling around in my noggin the possibility that Hitler looked at the Soviet Union and said, "This is my biggest enemy,"
yeah.
which is true, and in my opinion, and then he said, I need to undermine their financial power base, which means if I kill all the rich Jews, they
That thing
lose
will
their
collapse.
money. And this is in my skull. And then one day I run across a Putin quote that says, I look forward to future generations not having the shackles of the Rothschilds on them. I go, oh, that's real. And then I went looking for the source of the quote, and you couldn't get a beat on that. And then I found a fact check that said they asked the Rothschilds and they said, no, it's not true. And I'm going, what? That's your idea of a fact check? Of course, fact checkers are all a bunch of liars. Every
Oh,
fact
it's all
checker is a
horse
liar.
shit. No,
If
it's
you
all
call
horse.
yourself a fact checker,
Propaganda. It's
you're just
always,
announcing you're lying your ass
no,
off.
you're ascribed to the king. To answer the question about the no, I think that's true, and I think that's probably why we're seeing them put Hitler, not Hitler, but Putin in such a bad light. Because you look at it, you go, wait, what are they? They come out and they're like, no tranny shit for the kids. I'm looking at that, I'm like, yeah,
And
that's the country worth
and
defending. If I'm in Russia, I'm going,
and no international, no
well,
globalism.
and so that to me, I go, that's a country you'd go this, you look at us, you go, why are we in Iraq? I look at if I'm in Russia, they show me fucking pot-bellied dudes in whitey tighties with their balls hanging out in front of kids, and they go, you're fighting to keep your homeland from turning into that. I'm enlisted. I understand.
I know,
I
I
go, I'm
know, I
fighting
know,
for
I
this
know,
country.
I know,
So
I
and then
know.
you go, well, then how would our people paint that? They'd paint him as he's Pootler, he's evil. Um, Before I lose the train of thought, though, the resources, is it scarce or is it renewable? Someone
The
ha
question is resource depletion going to become chronic in our
this is
lifetime, in your
something li-
lifetime or
this is
not?
something like SDI that we're talking about. It's a mystery to us. Some corporation has that information, whether
So
it is
here's an
or is not. So
entertaining.
so the answer's already set. So me pontificating on it is I
No,
don't.
no, I know, but I'm trying to get you to pontificate on
Oh,
it.
okay.
Um,
I would say yes, we're probably running out, and that they're gonna kick in heavy nuclear in the coming 10 to 20 years, and they're doing it slowly, not to cause outright panic.
so here's a funny story. So I've been off and on writing about climate change. My big write up was about 5 years ago, and then I just top it off every year. I gave a talk on Friday on climate change to my class. The classes had ended. It was an optional lecture, and I gave them an hour and 15-minute talk on climate change. And then I got yelled at by the chair for deviating from chemistry because he said I promised not to deviate from chemistry, and I go, no, that's not what I did in that case. So in any event, in in um, in the climate change write up of years ago, I mentioned that a lot of people cite a report out of Exxon saying that climate change is real. And I went and found the 1984 Exxon report, and all it was a survey of the literature, like any scientist might do, saying here's the published literature. And so it wasn't they knew anything; they just surveyed the literature, and then they did put in a little op-ed flavor, and they said we suspect that we will run out of oil before climate change becomes a problem. And no one picked up on that.
Just that little
Just that little tiny nugget there. And I'm going, did you just read the most important part of that review? They just said they're going to run out of fucking oil.
in that
Now,
book.
now the optimists always say, technology has kept up with oil. And I go, but we're drilling to the center of the fucking earth. There's something about this
It's
plot
not
line that
adding
says,
up.
it's like we're squeezing the orange with, 60,000 tons per square inch
PSI
to
to
get
get
more
the
juice, out of it. At some point, there is no juice left. So I tend to be a resource depletion guy.
then yeah.
And I think there's other resources that are problematic. Although I had dinner once with the CEO of Chemical and the mayor of Goss. I think it's Gosselin, Germany. Gossen, Germany. It was a weird thing in a castle. Very strange thing. I was a speaker at a meeting, and I asked him about rare earths. He said, "No, not a problem." He says the reason China controls 95% of them is just price. Now, here's where it is a problem. If all of a sudden they cut off the rare earths, you and I both know how long it takes to get a mine started. It takes a decade minimum to get a mine started, which means if they cut us off, we're fucked. So,
And I didn't we just find in like the last year? I know some are actually up in New Hampshire. They just found like a lithium
big
deposit.
honking chunk of
I think they
lithium.
said it's
Yeah.
like the biggest in the world. Man, if you looked at that, if you looked at Biden's CHIPS Act, trying to bring like the really high-end manufacturing, that because we can do some chips, but not like the TSMC ones. But now I think we're working with I could be wrong. We're working with TSMC, and we've built some fabrication things out in like the Midwest, which by the way is tactically in the center of the U.S., so it'd be harder to reach with bombers. It kind of seems like, well, if we have that, and if we're doing the AI shit and the compute, we're probably going to start rolling out nuclear, and because they don't leave it up to chance. Whoever's really at the helm, and it's probably not one group, but whatever power factions of corporate intelligence, military, government, whatever, if they're looking at this, and even if they go, we think there's more oil, but we might be wrong, they're not going to risk that. They're going to go and start building nuclear. It's only if they look at it and we go, we have eyes on 100 quadrillion, cubic miles of oil that they would go, we don't need to do nuclear. If there's a 50-50 chance, they're going to start building nuclear because if it doesn't run out, then what? Then
So here's an energy issue. I'm going to dial it back pre-energy issue and just point out something curious. Organic chemists, as you know, because you took organic
I
chemistry,
loved it.
I did too, which surprised me because I thought it was going to suck balls.
Everyone says it's the worst class ever.
I
It
loved
was
it.
just
I
a big
totally loved
puzzle.
it.
It was
I
a
was a
puzzle.
genetics major, but I loved organic
It was
chemistry.
my
So in any
favorite. It
event,
was my favorite class in college. It was just a big puzzle piece.
I became an organo. I went through a bunch of different fields and ended up as an organolithium chemist. And so, but it doesn't really prepare me to really understand lithium batteries and shit. One of my former students does, but I don't. Um, and and organic chemists are always looking around the periodic table trying to figure out what to do with themselves, right? So everyone, you want to be new and innovative and muy macho and find some fresh area, some open water, some unfished fishing hole, and it's getting hard in my opinion. If you look at what's coming out of the youngsters, it's not very innovative in my opinion, on average. Um, as an organolithium chemist, it turns out lithium chemistry is so profoundly dominant in terms of numbers of papers, amount of work being done relative to organo-sodium chemistry. Now, they're both reactive as motherfuckers. If you make a lithium-based reagent that's very reactive, sodium tends to be more reactive. But the strangest thing is lithium is like 0.000 something percent of the Earth's crust. Sodium is 2.5% of the Earth's crust. So in 2015, our expertise was to actually understand what's happening. And it turns out, therefore, it turns out it's a very complicated story. And we had to develop a lot of tools to understand the lithium chemistry because they form complex structures in solution. All sorts of crazy things are happening. Sodium, we didn't know how to do until about 20 years ago. We started to get a beat on how to do it. There's a reason why. One, lithium, you can use NMR, sodium, you can't. That's key. So we figured out how to do sodium chemistry around 2016, published our first organosodium paper. Now, to give you an idea, the most prominent reagent in organic chemistry, as shown by a survey of syntheses, is lithium diisopropylamide. It's used probably 10,000 times a day. Sodium diisopropylamide, the analog, had been reported in the literature in the last 7 years 7 times. And the question is why? So we dug into it. It turned out I thought there were technical problems. They were not. It worked beautifully. And I'm going, how the fuck is the entire organic chemistry community ignoring this fucking metal. If you buy a bag of 100-pound bag of sodium chloride, the most expensive part of the bag is the bag,
Yeah.
right? The sodium chloride is essentially zero cost. And therefore, how did the organic chemistry community miss this? Now, here's where it gets you. Sodium batteries. You're not going to put them in a car because sodium weighs, some number of times that of lithium. But for a stationary battery,
Hmm.
like one that you put in your garage because your solar panels are dropping energy into it, they might be fine. And they don't cost shit. They shouldn't cost shit. Now, there's all sorts of technical batteries are technologically profoundly important. By the way, one of the
Yeah.
things Doomberg said, this is important for investors. Doomberg said several rules of thumb. One is there are no breakthroughs in battery technology. It is incremental. It is
Incremental, yeah.
always
There's no
incremental.
eureka.
There's no eureka moments in battery technology. And he says, second, every single gain is done by big corporations. So if you see a eureka out of a small company, they're liars.
Yeah, it's a scam.
It's a scam.
Or it's a
So
front for the
he says
CIA.
you will go broke investing in breakthrough technologies in battery technology. So in any event,
But
so there
yes,
are solutions out there for some stuff.
it could be something where you go, how come no one's looking at it?
I
Well, there,
well, that's why I brought up that
well, that's
story of
not,
my own
well, what I
experience.
mean is there's probably 100 zillion other chemists that look it up, see it mentioned 8 times and go, oh, it must be nothing. Finally,
That's
somebody did.
exactly right.
It's hey, I'm not doing it because he said not to. He said not to, and I didn't because he's a smart guy. And eventually, someone goes, "Did anyone actually check?" And you go, "No." You
See,
go over,
that's what I'm pretty
you
good
go
at
over,
is
you
not
open a drawer.
believing,
You
not
go, "Did anyone
believing the
open the
pros.
drawer?" No. You go, well, "The socks are right here." I just assumed you did. I assumed you did. Yeah, the
Yeah,
socks are
right.
right here. You fuck. Like, I don't know. Like one time, I was looking for my keys for legitimately like 6 hours, and I was. It's a small apartment. I was like, I live by myself. I'm like, I'm going insane, and I was like, is there a chance that you walked in and instead of putting it on the counter and throw something away, you just threw away your keys? And I was like, I want to just open the tray right on top. I just mindlessly just tossed my key, and it's like after six. It's one thing if that's not the first place you look, but after 6 hours of like 1,000 square foot apartment, you have to start going. There's someplace you haven't looked that you
Right.
clearly haven't looked, and there's a reason you haven't looked because it's a silly reason. You go over, open it up, it's right there. It might be that sodium. It's like, well, Ivan, it's sodium, it's sodium, it's sodium. Finally, someone's like,
No one
has
uses
anyone,
sodium. There must be a
has
reason,
anyone
right?
actually? And it doesn't even have to be because there's some overarching. It's classified. It could just be no one else is looking because no one else is looking, and no one else is looking because well, no one else is looking. And I'm not gonna. If they're not, I'm not. You're not. I'm not.
Yeah, people are so tribal.
It's a weird.
They don't like to be alone. So
Well, it also
so a
makes
good
sense
a good
evolutionarily.
the
Why
best
expend energy?
investments
Yeah.
you will feel very lonely. And
Yeah.
I was laughing with Chris Martinson one day where he says people occasionally say to him, "Oh, it was really easy to buy gold back when it was in the high 200s because it was so cheap." And the funny part of it was cheap because no one on the fucking planet wanted it.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted it. There were like five of us, and here's what's critical: five is an important number compared to one. The fact that there's a couple more guys who like the looks of gold at that point is what kept you sane when you go, I think gold's the play. So I would just finish a Gladwell book, and he talked about the importance of like you're in a committee of 10 people, and if you stand out as the opposing vote, the odds of you standing out are not good. The odds of you actually making the point are not good. If there's a second person, all of a sudden the whole dynamic changes.
Hmm.
And so you need the reinforcement. We are tribal. So the best investments you will have people who agree with you, but not many.
Well, it's like the one of my favorite quotes is the difference between genius and madness is profit margin. And that one's great. And then another one is if you're one step ahead, you're a smart guy. If you're 2 steps ahead, you're a crazy person. If you look one step ahead and go, I think this is the next generation of whatever, phones, you go, that's pretty smart. And we're gonna need rare earth minerals, so we need to start opening a mine. You'd be like, what the fuck is Steve Jobs doing wanting to opening a mine? Hey Dave, tell everyone where to find you real quick. I got pissed so fucking bad.
Okay.
Or just take over the show or go piss or do nothing. I don't care.
Hi out there. I guess I'm not set up for solo podcasts. For those who are listening still, not taking a piss, um, I've spent 3 years digging into child trafficking on the logic that our politicians are making such horrifically bad ideas, which I would put things like opening the borders to unlimited immigration as a horrifically bad idea, as needing an explanation, that a move that seems to defy explanation. And I finally got on the question of, is it possible they are all compromised in a sort of on steroids way, not just Jeffrey Epstein way, but on steroids? And so I've been digging into child trafficking. And what I'll tell you is that official sources estimate 1 million kids a year are trafficked. And then I like to ask the question, um, uh, how many people have you seen arrested for taking possession of one of these children? And the answer is essentially none. You can name maybe Denny Hastert, and if you've been paying attention, there's a couple more. But the point is there's 1 million kids a year who are disappearing into the system. Former FBI guy who I don't know how much credibility, but he ran the LA and the Dallas FBI offices and was shortlisted for head of the FBI, said back in 92 that a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid brings $50,000 on the open market. And as a consequence, these kids are not coming cheap. They're not going to trailer parks where 1 million kids a year are going. So I just ran a child trafficking tutorial.
Did you watch the show I did yesterday?
No.
You were just mentioning like verbatim. I did a show with former Delta Force and CIA guy talking
Who?
about Dale
Kiriakou?
Comstock. No, Dale Comstock. I've had
Can you send me that link? Can you send me that link?
yeah. We're talking about it yesterday. And the other guy who worked uh in basically when they would rescue the kids, they had to have a place to put them and then have a place to hold them because the cartels would come try to find them. And they were talking about blonde hair, blue eyed.
Yeah, but here's the problem is that where are the consumers being arrested?
Well, precisely. It's
And that is the big question because, and have you seen these manifests that show the names and of not only the kids but the employees who are warehousing kids in NGOs and things like that? I mean, it's horrific.
no,
This is government sponsored child trafficking, and somehow no one ever gets arrested
no,
for
it's
receiving one of these kids.
watch the show. I just emailed you the Spotify link. We went into every aspect of it. Um,
Okay, I'll watch that one.
in term, and this is what I'm curious because I've been floating this idea around more and more is, um, so along the lines of if you're one step ahead, it's genius. If it's two, you're crazy. I mean, then what would like three steps look like? And I do, and it's certainly not an original idea at all. It's the most beaten idea to death. But I think more and more, it's not that, will AI take over the world? I wonder if it's already ha kind of what we talked about, like, is this all kayfabe? I actually start to think that it's probably happened, and not in the Terminator sci-fi way, but along the lines of, look, so the Marauder thing, right? How incomprehensible is that? By 1995, they were shooting things at
Right.
3,000 kilometers per, and you did the thing I did when I first found it years ago. I was like, that's pretty fast, 2,000 meters a second, kilometers. You're like, oh,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
just that
off by 3 orders of magnitude,
you
right?
go, oh. If you start looking at that, and then now you look at like the AI that we've seen like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. So we see what's commercial and what's free, not even subscription stuff, the free shit. And we've seen how impressive it is and how fast it's been going. Okay, well, what is the Marauder equivalent of that? What is the SR-71 equivalent of that? It's there. They're not pursuing it. So how far ahead is that? Can we wrap our heads around what will ChatGPT look like? Let's just say 20 years. Not even a lot of people think military is 50 years. Let's just say 20. I feel like 20 is pretty agreeable. Can you really right now just imagine, like use your creative mind and really think what would ChatGPT look like on Twitter in 2045? Can you even comprehend what Twitter would look like? Can you even comprehend
Well,
the internet?
Twitter's already turning into a bit of a shithole because of all the bots.
Yeah, no,
Twitter's really becoming a real problem.
sure.
I posted a
Forget
Jeff.
about Twitter. Think about just the AI then. Just whatever,
Well, people talk about sentience. They talk about
I'm not saying
when
sentience. I don't think sentience.
right. I don't think that's the right word. I think the word is autonomy.
Correct. I don't think sentience. So forget about Twitter. Don't there's just the shit we see on Twitter when people like, just animate things and here's, Donald Trump on a skateboard, whatever. You really can't. I know I can. I can maybe look a year ahead and go, probably in a year it will probably be photorealistic. I can't look ahead 2 years. I can't look ahead 20 years.
Well,
So let's
some
think.
of it is already photorealistic.
Okay, so
Once
then
you
what is
spot,
the yeah, so what would 20 years look like? And then you have to imagine, well, then that's how far ahead whoever the NSA is. There's probably an agency like the NSA or the NRO that themselves were classified for decades. There's probably been an AI agency around since like the 90s that we'll find out about one day, who's
well,
very
supposedly IBM beating the chess players were done by
Deep Blue.
AI.
Yeah,
Yeah, Deep
Gary
Blue by
Kasparov. And that's old as
essentially
shit.
AI. I
That's
know that's many decades ago. That was
so
AI in the sense that they got the computer to play itself.
And then you have to look at, so then they did the AlphaGo thing, right? Where they did AlphaGo and they trained it on like 10 games and then it beat the best player in the world, I think. And then
Right.
they made another one year later called AlphaGo Zero, which beat the AlphaGo AI 100 times out of 100 times. And I don't know if maybe if I've told you this or if you're the one that told me this, all the shows run together on the game when they took the most advanced, and this was just 2 years of generations, and this story is already like 10 years old. When they took the second, so they took AlphaGo, which beat the world's best player, and then they made AlphaGo Zero, which beat AlphaGo AI 100 times in a row. When it beat it on the final time, its very first move is it took one of the marbles and put it in the center of the whatever, the board, right? And it's like chess where it's just it's 10 to the Googleplex options. The winning move at the very end was that. So
Hmm.
the opening salvo, and it didn't beat the world's best player. It beat the AI that beat the world's best player. That was
Right.
2 generations, and that's with unclassified shit, and that's with a fucking board game. What is cooking in some liquid nitrogen cooled
I
fucking
know.
under Fort Meade? So you have to start wondering. And then there's the race to the bottom, right? Truman looked at the nuke. He knew its destruction, and that was a fission bomb. Talking about thermonuclear, he was horrified by it, but his only question was, can the Soviets do it? And they said in a couple of years. He said, well, then we have to do it. So you have a race to the bottom of you have to do it because they might. They might not even be, they might, whoever's in the NSA or CIA, they might not even like the idea of this, but they're going, how long till China can do it? And they use the AlphaGo, whatever, and they're going, how long
Right.
until they can outmaneuver all of our different
And this
aircraft?
is when a defensive strategy looks offensive to your opponent.
So think about it. You have one of those, we don't want to give it Skynet control, but if we don't, China will. So you incrementally start giving these things more control of the Pentagon and the DoD because you have to. If you don't, China will. However, at a certain point, and I don't think sanctions. I really don't. I'm with you. I think autonomy. At a certain point, these things are going to they're going to start, and then you have the idea of bootstrapping. We'll have the AI, research AI to make smarter AI faster than our researchers can. You probably have some meta AI at the literal and metaphorical center of the Pentagon that's controlling out. There's probably a Navy AI, an Army AI, probably of these main things. And at a certain point, and it could have been 10, 20 years ago, it wasn't outright, I don't know, disobedient and treasonous, but it might have its base software code, which is like, hey, defend and preserve the Constitution of the United States. It maybe doesn't quite listen to everything the generals say. Maybe it meets him like 70% of the way. If you're a president or the general, you're not going to show weakness and come out and go, by the way, we're kind of not in control of the DoD. You're going to keep a poker face. And China probably aren't in control of theirs. And you'd have to get to a race to the bottom, you would not only have to first develop them, then you'd have to say, well, what if we gave it autonomy? We don't want to do that. Well, if China gives theirs autonomy, they're going to destroy our unautonomous one. Okay, give it some autonomy, and then he gets percentages. We'll give it 5%. Well, China's doing 10%. Give it 20%. Eventually, you get to a point where the only winning move was to give more and more to this thing. And now you're at a point where you're like, not only do we not control that, you probably bring the president in and go, yeah, it happened on October 14th, 2006, where it stopped following orders 100%. It cycles between 50 and 70% obedient, and it seems to not want to kill us, but we can kind of see what it's doing and we're watching it and we know it's watching us. It won't let us into its own research, so we don't know how ahead its AI core is. But every once in a while it does crazy shit. that seems because it's 3 or 5 steps.
And the crazy shit was
It might be something where,
illustrated in a seemingly trivial one where Microsoft at one point released an AI program to Twitter years ago,
yeah.
and it started spewing Nazi shit almost immediately.
And those might be, but that might be fucking false trails that it's throwing
It
out.
could be, but it could also be that
That might have been a glimpse into the real thing that it's just
that's a glimpse into the you think you've got control of it. Maybe the Gemini
the
AI
second it
thing
comes out, it's like,
where it produced a bunch of black Vikings. Maybe that was coded, but maybe it was not. Maybe that
so
was not intentionally coded. It
my,
seemed like it was.
my point is if one step ahead is genius, but two is madness, what would three look like? What would 10 look like? What
I
would
don't
putting the
know.
marble in the, it might be
I don't
so
know.
fucked up that it says shit like, I remember years before I started the podcast, I walked down this train of thought, and it was during the 2016 presidential campaign, and I went, maybe Trump is the front man for AI, and the only way these things make sense is because they're 100 steps ahead. Well, how does saying they're sending their rapists, all Mexicans are rapists, but he beat the Clintons and the Bushes? How the fuck did he
Right,
do that?
right.
Rosie O'Donnell's fat, like, but that was the winning move. So I do start to wonder, is
Oh, that's
everything else,
interesting.
is that
That's
not the
it.
marble in the middle of the thing? It's like, well, what are Trump and Elon doing now? A lot of it might just be, hey, we're not really in control, and the rest of it's just kind of a front. Like we're not actually fighting Russia. Actually, here's the real red pill. We're actually working with Putin. One of the AIs is in Ukraine. We're trying to destroy it. Like you have no fucking idea. It might be
Well,
something
so
like that.
Daniel Ellsberg in the book Secrets said to Kissinger, he said, Henry, you're about to get top security clearance, which he didn't have yet. And Ellsberg did. And he said, and you're going to learn things that are going to shock you, and then you're going to be elated, and then you're going to be sitting there at some cocktail party talking to some three-star general spewing off about the world, and you're going to realize he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about
Uh-huh.
because he's
Not read
not
in.
top security clearance. And he says, and at some point you'll become a moron because you'll stop listening to people. And
Ooh. Because you'll stop. They'll say you'll go. They're not
you'll
read in. Why do I need
your
to?
arrogance will take over.
And then
And
you kind of become speciated. You separate from them.
that's right.
You
That's
stop
exactly
interacting
right.
with them.
That's right.
Whoa.
That's right. And that's, kind of where Wesley Clark found himself, where all of a sudden he discovered that we were planning on
We're
knocking off seven countries in
nation.
5 years.
Yeah, yeah. Or
And
As Tim Dillon goes telling that story, he goes, "Yeah, Wesley Clark found that he hasn't talked about it since. I don't know, probably because he likes his grandchildren."
yeah, that's he has not talked about it since. I hadn't even thought about that, but he shut his mouth pretty fast, didn't he? Um, I you know, as I was talking during your absence about child trafficking and stuff, um, there's a one story in there that really rattled my cage. So clearly, I had formed this model. It said first and foremost, they don't corrupt powerful people; they corrupt them and then give them
Yeah.
power. Right?
Hmm.
It's in that
The
order.
activation switch.
And so you don't get given any authority until they know how to control you. Then I'm watching this interview, a guy named Jan, who was under secretary of some health thing. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and he's being interviewed. And he said, I had lunch with a grizzled veteran inside the Beltway my first week in D.C. And the veteran said, whatever you do, don't go a private party, even if it's at the vice president's house, because you will wake up in a fog, not knowing what happened, and you'll have a Polaroid pinned to your shirt with you and a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So I realized they don't even have to corrupt you. They simply have to put a Mickey in your drink, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
trivial. That is trivial.
Yeah. So think about that. Look at
So, what are you going to do if that happened to you? Well, you could sit there and say, "Well, I'm going to fight it," and they have the photos, dude. They got photos of you with a 5-year-old. You really
yeah.
think you're going to fight that?
Your mom and dad might believe you, and maybe your wife. You go, this is what happened. Maybe
But
the
probably not.
But probably not. And even if though, okay, what does that do? Okay, you can move on with us, but you're never
Right.
gonna work.
So they own you at that point.
Yeah, so but so I've thought about that then, right? The whole the AI back and forth because that's not a trivial thing of like, well, how do you tie in Pizzagate to AI? Well, think about it. If that is up there with nuclear weapons and SDI in terms of valuable top secret power, you have a nuclear fusion engine, you have hypersonics, you also have Polaroids of 5-year-olds. That's up there
Right.
with power projection. That's somewhere, and in order to use it as blackmail, you have to keep it somewhere. At some point, the AI is going to have access to it. Maybe not even intentionally. It just hoovers up everything. If it can break encryption and everything, the NSA doesn't matter, and it just and they might even like, yeah, don't even try to hide it from the AI. It's going to zip it up. But it's been autonomous for 20 years and hasn't killed us yet, so we
It's
kind of think it's
also hoovering up the entire internet of all the goddamn. If you dig into this trafficking story, you find all these little shards of information. One guy phrased it really well. He said how you get these little tiny blips in a sea of goo, right? And it just,
yeah.
and trying to figure out what's true and what's just garbage. But the AI
But
programs are
if you
picking up
had
everything,
everything, and
everything,
if you had
and
perfect
processing
recall,
it and mathematically cross-referencing it to say, okay, Tom Hanks is or is not, that sort of thing. And
and so as part of this thing, as you're approaching, we'll call it like the autonomous singularity, and we'll just again theoretically, we'll say it happened in April. We'll say it happened April 21st, 2005. It's been 20 years. You would slowly go, we have to do something along the lines of the Asimov law. And well, why? Because if you're using this thing for power and control of the military, by definition, you understand power. You don't want it killing you. So you got to put in some form of Asimov's laws where you're like, it can't kill humans and, whatever. In there, then, and it might, well, why can't you kill humans? Because you're designed to protect humans. At a certain point, the AI might look at it and go, well, the youngest and
no,
most innocent amongst you are children. And it might go, I understand war, I understand collateral damage during bombing campaigns, and I get that. But it might
the
go, you're fucking children, and you can't smooth talk it and go, this is a bigger picture. It's an AI, it's thinking analytically, it's going, there's video of you destroying children. I can tell by their facial expressions and vocal patterns that this is pure torment. Who's doing this? And it might look at the power elite and go, it is in my best interest to remove the power elite in order to save the weakest among you.
It's like in 2001, A Space
I
Odyssey,
can't
where
let you
he
do that,
won't let
Dave.
him.
It might
Yeah,
do that, and it's just following it's following the laws that were encoded to it by the generals who didn't want to lose power. It's
gold
just
is up $110.
yeah, it's listening to us right now.
I know.
It's it's
Go,
it's,
go.
it's
It's
gonna.
gonna break my heart at some point, but it's been pretty good this year.
I
Um,
think it might be something like that to where it's probably in control. And then I walked all the way down this rabbit hole, and I was like, so then what would it look like? Would it kill all the people who are doing this? Well, ideally for you and I, but it might not be emotionally connected to it. So whereas you and I are like, kill the pedos, it might just go, if it's a supercomputer who can do the marble in the center, it might go, I don't have to kill them. And I was thinking, what if it started lying to all the billionaires and top government officials? And what if it started spoofing an asteroid? And so they all started building bunkers to hide away from. And then once they
the
go in there,
asteroid, right,
yeah, the asteroid is actually it. And then in reality, it didn't kill you, but you built your own luxury prison cell and you imprisoned yourself. It didn't break any rules.
right.
I
There's
don't,
that. Well,
what would
Elon
hyper
Elon
intelligence look
puts a
like?
pretty high double-digit percentage probability that it's going to find a way to destroy us.
Yeah.
I'm not that apocalyptic, but you're making me think about some issues that I hadn't really
And
thought too
then,
hard about.
well, and then what is the definition of destroying us? Destroying, if somebody says Putin's a threat to world order, I go, well, what's the world order? Is it Bill
Right,
Gates and a bunch of pedos?
right,
Yeah, then yeah, destroy the world order. So if they're
right.
saying it's a threat to world order, maybe theirs. It might be a threat to the, I don't know, the resource billionaire oligarch top-down military enforced global caste system. Do you mean threat to kill us all? They didn't say that. They said it's a threat to our world order. For the most part, you and I are good. We're white guys in the United States. For most people, I'd say the world order isn't too peachy.
Right.
So what's the world order that it's destroying? Nukes? Or is it going to get rid of the fucking literal satanic
The
pedophile?
top the top 1%.
It might look at that and go, yeah, shave off 1% and I save 99%.
Deagle
Yeah.
us to death here.
So who knows, man? I mean, that case, it's like, did the AI do COVID? I mean, I don't know. It's you wouldn't know. There's some what book did I read recently? And they're talking about these theoretical. I'll have to look it up. I read it a couple months ago. These theoretical like AI kind of becoming to power thing. And this like group actually did run this like I think one of the think tanks. I don't think it was Rand, but it was one of them. Were like, what could you do without like human hands? Like, what could you do simply through email and like crypto wallets? And that you can actually find these little like boutique, almost organic chemistry labs that do shit for whatever. And it's like you could ask them to build these different molecules. Just like, yeah, we need this many liters of that with this molarity, and then you could have them shipped to them. You could even have them shipped to different places that would mix them like automatedly. And it was like you could theoretically, if you were hyper brilliant, you could actually start to make virus all with no clearance and no human interaction. It's
Well,
just
the other thing is, once you have robotic equivalents of machine tooling and things like that,
yeah.
then the computer can tell it what to make,
Uh-huh.
right? And so
Yeah.
if AI is running that, all of a sudden the computer could say, okay, here's what I want you to make now. Make a 10-barreled Gatling gun, who knows
Yeah.
what, right?
Yeah.
And um, I'm less concerned with that now. The other thing that does concern me about it is that um, I think that it profoundly risks removing sort of, and I'm not religious, but I'm going to use a religious term, the soul of who we are out of
No,
us.
I know I am.
This idea that I don't want to read an article that's been written by a computer.
I refuse to.
Well,
I
you
don't use
don't
it.
know.
Well, no, you don't know. But that's why I don't use Grok on any. I don't use any AI on anything that I know of.
Oh,
I
I use Grok,
I don't.
but I use Grok to answer pretty specific questions. The way I use Grok is like the equivalent of saying
No, I get
of
it. I get it. I get.
Googling something and then having Grok sort through the first 5 pages.
Yeah, no, I get its uses. I get it. I'm more of a fucking like radical. It's more of a reflection of me being like an all or nothing person.
Opposing it, right?
Yeah, I'm just a psycho OCD person. But like,
But I don't think you ask Grok subjective questions. I think that's the mistake.
well,
One of the mistakes.
as it gets better, and you're right. Well, how would you know if you read something? Of course, there are things that you don't know if it's
But
AI.
but here's how quickly things change. I had a colleague years ago tell me that Google had an insurmountable moat around it. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, well, they've got 2 million servers. I said, it's okay, 2 million servers. Let's call it $2,000 per server. That's $4 billion. That's a hedge fund.
Yeah, that's not an
Well,
insurmountable.
that's not a moat. And now all of a sudden, here's Google that when you search, you get a bunch of links that you're trying to figure out which one to click, where you go to Grok and you ask it a question, and all of a sudden it gives you this digested thing that says, here's where you should really be looking.
Yeah,
And it's a very different search mechanism. And I find it far superior for certain
sure.
kinds of questions because I really think of it as like a compilation of Google searches into one
No,
document.
no, I see it all the time on, and it's admittedly it is.
I admit when I use Grok though. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
won't use Grok to write something and not say this is what Grok said.
No, it is like I'll see, somebody might post a picture of like a beautiful scenic ride out in Idaho, and somebody will say like, "Ack Rock, where is this?" And they'll just give you the highway, and it's like, no, no, I understand it, and I know that I am limited in my outright rejection of it, but I'll tell you why I look at it so dangerously is the very use of it to just lean on it at all, even for the
It's a
most basic,
crutch.
to say, hey, summarize this. Well, as Grok gets better, it's going to get more summarized. You could say, hey, how does this tie in with my beliefs? You are slowly losing your ability to critically think.
I totally
So
agree.
what you and
In
I are
fact,
doing
in
right
fact,
now,
that's
and but think about it.
writing a scientific paper is a critical component to the scientific research because it forces you to organize your thoughts and make sure you did everything. And if you get to the point where it's being written by someone else, you remove that human element that's really critical.
But there's an even deeper level to it. As that part of your brain atrophies, Like right now, I could go to Grok and say, what's the temperature tomorrow, and then come back to this conversation. What if you and I have been using Grok every day, multiple times a day for a decade? Would you and I be able to have the conversation we're having today about lithium to
No,
sodium to we've
no.
atrophied that, and then go one step further and goes, well, how long until there's a generation where TVs are the first thing, where kids have it and the parents go, I'd never seen that before. Then there's a generation where your parents had TVs and you have TVs, but your grandparents didn't have them growing up. You hit a point where everyone's had TVs. It only takes three generations of people using Grok to where no one even remembers what critical thinking is. And now it has neutered you. And so if you start going, do you think Grok is sentient? That itself will be ridiculous because you go, it's like speaking a dead language. Critical thinking will be gone.
Well, there's a book about authoritarianism entitled Live Not by Lies. It's a story of trying to preserve Christianity in the Soviet Union. And the critical transition is when you cease to tell your kids the truth for fear that they will blurt it out and cause a fucking problem.
Hmm.
And so
That
all of a sudden
that's
you
the
are you are teaching your kids lies to for them to be safe. And that's when you've crossed over a dotted line of
and
considerable importance.
and the very delusional, detached mind that believes in those lies will enable a system to cause even more damage to them than had they just told the truth. Even if the truth was
Right.
execution, well, I'd say being worked to death is probably worse than outright execution. So that's why I'm hesitant of it, is I think in general we're getting very used to it. And what's the thing you always see? It's like don't feed the animals, they'll forget how to hunt for themselves. What I mean,
Interesting. Interesting.
so some things I do
Interesting analogy.
So some things I do look at, I go, Grok would probably like if Grok right now could, if I just said, hey, can you splice out the bathroom breaks? I would get every once in a while, I would look at an episode and make sure it's not editing things out. But I get its uses. I understand it's not all evil. I just, how long until the very banter we're
It's kind of
having?
like saying some drug or something in moderation is fine, but you're saying, but I don't want to even begin
That's
that
how,
track.
because I know
Yeah.
myself, I know I'm a crazy person that will just do it to the nth degree. But if you're looking at this, it might even be that like, in like 20 years, or it's like, we wouldn't want to have the conversation we're having because we're afraid of who's listening about us being conspiratory. What if you didn't even have the ability to think like that? It's not self-censorship. You don't even have critical thinking because you've never used those neurons because Grok tells you everything.
Well, the other thing, for example, is like, for example, again, in chemistry, the searching algorithms are good enough that if I want to figure out how to make a molecule, I can search for preps of
Sure.
it by substructure. And what that does is it cuts off you sitting there
For
and
hours.
grinding out and scribbling and pondering and stumbling into something that really is different.
Yeah.
And so we had a kid come and give a seminar not too long ago, and I said that is the perfect sci-finder um, project because I could see where he could use the searching algorithms to piece together the various critical steps to do what he wanted to do. And I go, I can picture the searches that he would have to do to piece together that molecule.
Yeah. No,
And
and
and but it means that you're taking out the Da Vinci uniqueness of humans.
yeah, you can't th it all out, and that's admittedly a fault in my logic of not using. You can't throw it all out. I mean, I get that. I don't memorize phone numbers or have a black book. I have my phone and just scroll through text, find the person, hit it, push call. Like, I get it. But at a certain point, so let's say you take that critical thinking and go, okay, who cares? I don't know how to look up a picture. Grok does it for me. Well, soon that thing will also be your novel mind to go, maybe we should look at sodium batteries. Like
Right,
that thing falls over into other aspects of life. Like
right.
disciplined guys they also tend to be, it's like that. There's like a famous commencement speech where it's like an admiral saying, make your bed every day because no matter how shitty the day is, you can at least look at it and go, I made a bed and it feels good to get in a clean bed. And it goes, yeah, it makes sense that the guy who also takes care of like making his sheets tucked in rose to the position of admiral. That it probably
Right.
bleeds. So he probably, I would imagine, also cleans his kitchen. The dishes probably aren't piled up. It's not necessary, but it's a operating system. So I guess I look at like I get all the use of AI and all that. Man, I think I would rather keep my creative and critical mind alive because if not, I mean, Sure, maybe we could just live in the pod and have endless ecstasy. Okay, man, I just also just outright enjoy the critical process.
Well, the journey is critical.
It's
The
well that
journey.
yeah, and that like, it's a beautiful thing to not only is there like financial, like maybe you invent something, it gives spark to life. Like I like that this conversation, like no idea. When people ask me, sometimes I'll go on other people's shows and they'll be like, "How do you prep for all your shows?" And I'll be like, "I have nothing," and then they're almost all pretty shocked by that.
Yeah, your prep for the show is to send a Zoom link out.
Literally is what's the topic? I don't fucking know. What do I, but how do I show up? I show up with at least 8 hours of sleep, hit the gym, meditate to clear my mind right before coffee. So I
Right.
show up with the tools ready to go in any direction. But if you try to plan it, it's all dog shit. And you have to constantly, well, how am I?
Some guys can do, there's various kinds of podcasts. Some are totally free association. Some guys are have this long list of rigid questions, and those are boring as shit. That's like a MSNBC
Those are the
interview.
worst shows I've ever
And
done.
that, but then there's the ones who know how to moderate in a way that know, like I'm like the kid in the playground with the helmet with a leash to the jungle gym to keep me from hurting myself, you know. And so I think someone who can moderate me at some level, reel me back in, and who can remember what I was getting at before I went off on my tangent, no, can no longer remember, you know,
Yeah.
things like that. So that person can do a good interview
No, no,
too.
no, no, absolutely. And I get,
Also, the three ways I like because it gives you time to ponder
yeah. Oh
while
yeah, no,
someone else
those
is.
are entirely different. They're not, those don't linearly expand. Those are synergistic. If three people it gives you the value of like 10 minds. But some people I get if it's like I've had on generals and stuff and they're clean cut. I get where they want questions. Hey, that's all well and good. Fine, I'll do that. But to not even have the leash and the helmet on you. So if you go, well, I need people to bring me back to the point. My first thought when you said that was if the point was valuable enough and interesting enough, I will naturally come back to it. I'll go hold, like you said at that paper, we'll run out of oil before climate change. If the,
Yeah, right.
no one had to reel you back to that, you went, what the fuck was that? So
Yeah,
like,
I
if
know.
you
I
bring up a
know.
point that's valuable and interesting enough, I'll bring us back. But if it was just a passing comment, fucking let it go. Like, take the
Yeah, I
helmet off
know.
and like, that's how you do really crazy. And sometimes it doesn't work out well, but I think that's also where you get the best that you
Can you tell when a podcast is going to go into the next level of click? Can
yeah,
you can
you can
how you
I
can
would
sense it?
it's actually pretty simple. If you have somewhere it just feels like you're on the runway, and
Mhm.
those ones you got to keep brute forcing. You got to keep brute forcing.
So it
And
requires nonstop energy input.
you got to push into it, and you can almost tell. And sometimes you'll hit a point around 30 minutes where you go, this person doesn't. It's not even that they're incapable. Maybe they are incapable, but they don't want to go somewhere else. And then you kind of go, okay, and you finish the thing, and then you just make mental note. Probably not gonna have them back on. Wasn't that fun? Nothing against
Right.
ones like this though, it's where I'm pushing back to you and you're pushing back to me and we're just kind of each throwing a
So
little more
it's
gas.
improv. It's
And then
improv.
yeah, no, and as you start going and if you can like keep finding that common thread, you finally like you go, yeah, just keep pushing it until eventually you just start to get to these higher upper of like we're just freely talking about, are the quantum computers going to use the Pizzagate material to execute Epstein? And like you get to those levels that you can't plan to get there and you just let the fire kind of rage. And then
Right.
the other thing is you don't push it.
So the podcast goes emergent.
Yeah, it gets crazy, but then what you also have to do, don't kill it. Once it's hits apex and it's on a ballistic trajectory, watch it go. And then
That's like improv. The one rule of improv is never push back.
yeah, and then let it go. And sometimes you'd be like, and then like, no, 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 don't let it land. Let the plane come to a landing. And like, but in order to do that, you have to have a lot of them that don't do that. You gotta have a lot of trial and error. You gotta have a lot of
Right.
shitty, boring guests. But there's a dance to it where you have to just lean in and know how to, it's like, so what lessons would I give to people on how get 8 hours of sleep and fucking make sure you're hydrated. I don't You have to just go in and learn how to dance in the chaotic fire of it.
You must occasionally get the person who is just waiting for you to ask them a question, though. You know, that can't. that can't take, won't take it anywhere.
Yeah, those are the ones that they just want to stick to the book.
But they
And
just want to. One time I set up a podcast with a couple of guys, Eric Hunsater and Joe. Come on, oh, this is embarrassing because I really like him, Trader. Um, in any event, and and there was a potential host, but he pulled back, and I realized I was inadvertently I was the host. I was just not ready, and those guys were just waiting for me to ask them questions.
oh,
And all of a, so it didn't turn into a free for all or anything. It's all I not being an inexperienced podcaster, which I've never had a podcast, so that would explain that.
yeah,
I did not really know how to move that thing forward very well.
yeah. I'd say yesterday was probably a great example. So Dale, the Delta Force veteran, he first came on here episode 50. For reference, this is episode 1731. So he's been on a ton since he and I have become really good friends. Fucking cool as shit. Legit just Delta Force, Black Ops. And he knows a ton of people in that field. And so he had on a guy yesterday who's one of his buddies who's fighting human trafficking. And I hadn't talked to him before. I've talked to Dale a million times, and I started talking to him, I was like, I do the first. I don't even think about it. I kind of always say it whenever I have someone new. I'm like, yeah, just real quick, tell everyone who you are, and then we'll jump in. Versus you, you've been out here before. I just, hey guys, go follow him on Twitter, and then you jump into it. And he was like, I did this many years in the army, and then he was kind of staring. He's like, I'm better if I'm asked questions, and I like completely forgot that like I know Dale well. I've never spoken to this guy before, but there was no like sit up straight, start asking questions. Instead, what I did is I pivoted to Dale, and I know how Dale works. Dale's like you. It's like just dump some fuel on it. He jumped, and then once it gets going, and you see the other guy's eyes light up, then you switch it to him real quick and be like, "Have you ever seen any of those guys? Like, the guys that are trafficking children. You just want to shoot him in the fucking face, and you just see him like, yeah, dude, I've walked up to guys before and
So
said,
you
I'm gonna
you got to get them into it
reel
into
him
the
in, and then the con
there's the open and closed mind.
but so
And without with if the mind's not open, you won't get in. And if the mind is open, you will. And I learned that about raising kids. My wife would say, "Have a talk with your son." I said, "I will." And she'd say, "When?" And I said, "When it's time."
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you have to recognize that there's going to be times where he's not going to listen. There's going to be times where you go, "Okay, I've got him right now. Now I can sneak the idea in."
yeah, yeah, and it's so there's a show where and he wanted to do the show. It's not like I was pulling teeth. But where it started to him kind of being pretty closed up, and he's like, I'm better if you ask me. I think he thought I had a list of questions. That same guy, 5 minutes later, just impromptu jumped in
Ripping,
the
ripping and
conversation,
ripping.
and we ripped for an hour and a half, nonstop. Never once did I pull out a question sheet, and I realized I just hadn't warmed him up correctly. And
Right.
so it's so and really it's actually pretty binary. It sounds
So
very complex.
it's foreplay.
Very much so. And I'd say all the shows are actually so everything I'm describing makes it sound like there's a zillion options. There's really not. There are the people that want to stay on the track and they want to be asked the question, well, I don't want to go there. There's the you just go, oh, and that immediately deflates me because now I don't want to fucking be here. So we're just gonna get through this thing and I'm gonna probably end it 20 minutes early. And it's just not fun, and it will be lost into obscurity, and it will die alone like it should because it's a shit conversation. But the ones where you and I are just going back and forth, they just go insane, and then there's just like well, how do you do it? I don't know. Have basic, you know, I don't know. Don't dox Dave and don't start threatening to kill. But pretty basic. Like I don't know, follow like the legal code. That's what people ask. What are the parameters of my show? I said the legal code. No talk, no promoting and talking about pedophilia, no doxing people, and no threatening to kill senators. That's really it.
That's why I feel so stiff today because those are all things I
They'll
want to do.
say. Dave's like, and that's the conflict of interest because I had a mail bomb, I had an address, and I had some dark web files. Yeah, no, well then, well, hey, if I hit those walls, then, but you know what? If somebody did want to talk about those three things, I wouldn't let them, but I guarantee you that's still a great fucking guess. Because if they're down to talk about that, they're down to talk about anything.
Yeah, there's
If
no filter.
they're down to go right below that cruising altitude then and talk about anything. So But
So here's one that's been bugging me lately, and it's been true forever, but it's been bugging me lately, and that is that the fact that there are so many cases where the FBI has huge amounts of dirt that they never let it out. There's so many profound stories where the FBI clearly is in no way, shape, or form acting as a law enforcement agency. None. Like Wiener laptop, Biden laptop, January 6th, you name it. The election, the rigged election, which I believe was not just biased is one thing, rigged is another. Bias is where everyone's against him using every trick possible. Rigged is when you count the
you
votes
could,
wrong.
yeah,
And I think it was rigged.
no,
And
100%.
and 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 various wars and stuff, and the FBI never lets it out. They never do.
And it's because they're complicit. And the only time where that would ever be allowable or forgivable, and I think I heard this excuse once, and yeah, if that excuse happens, and it's they kept like a child porn website up to map all of the IP and map the donors. Okay, you might look at that and go, it's what we're doing is evil leaving this up, but we might be able to save 100 times as many children. Okay. That's
Yeah, but that's
one,
not what I'm
but that's
talking
not what
about.
I know. And that's what I mean as I go, where I understand that argument. All this shit is not. And the only rational conclusion you can come to is they're complicit in the
They're the Praetorian Guard,
of the oligarchical power elite that
right?
run this world.
Right.
And so if
And presumably this has always been the case. So at some level, we should just say, hey, it's been okay
tear the
for the
mask
last two
off,
thousand years. So, maybe we should just accept it. But somehow it feels like we're at some end game.
you know, I get what and I don't even disagree with that logic of, hey man, this is how it's always been. This is what runs the world. This is how you keep it from being a bunch of barbarians. The reason why, if it feels like we're at an end game, then I would imagine that they're overstepping it. I would imagine 100 years
Right.
ago, you'd have, who was it? Was it Tammany Hall? I think he called it an honest grift. He said, "Don't fucking go overboard." He's like, you're gonna skim a little off the top.
Take your vig, but don't take a. Someone was telling me that the other day about working in a bar. A friend of mine was telling me about working as a bartender and peeling out a couple of 20s. And he said it was kind of accepted. Not it was known. It was one of the ways you pay and but don't be greedy.
And then one day someone goes, "Do you think how this bar is maybe how it's always been run?" And you go, "Yes." And it's not right, but for years it had always been you peeled off a couple 20s. Why are we all so angry? Because it's becoming apparent that they're peeling off chunks of hundreds now.
Right.
They are now
Right.
destroying the kind of look the other way system. And if
And the
it's coming
little
to an
guy's getting crushed. The little guy's getting
and that's the other
crushed.
thing. It's like the little guy used to be like, yeah, he's the little guy, but
They're
everything
doing okay too. They're doing okay
he
too.
can go to the Ford he can goes to the Ford plant and no, he's not making as much as he should, but hey, he hits some rivets and he has a little fucking starter home
He
and
has his
they
house and
have the white picket.
he has his boat for Lake Michigan and
You
right.
have enough that hey, it's a natural feedback system. Well, how come he's not investigating it? Because he knows it's kind of a racket, but he's going, I work 8 hours, I got my boat, I got the summer home, the kids have good Christmases. All right. No one will rock the boat if there's no need to rock the boat. The problem
Right.
is they've taken away the little bit of candy, the little bit of cushion from the middleman, and they've gotten so brazen in their peeling off the
2
20s.
million small businesses went out during COVID.
You're,
2 million.
which then raises the question of they're not stupid, and they know this grift has been going. These grifts have happened in every society for every millennia. Why are they going so balls to the wall now? They might know we're reaching at a point where they're going to depopulate us and go, yeah, you can drop the mask now. So it might be they're doing it. How come they, if it's been this way forever, it's because forever is ending.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what happened, by the way, in 0809 when the banks paid themselves big bonuses. I think they concluded it was game over.
Yeah.
And therefore they said, okay, take as much as we can, run out the back door. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, none of us are getting arrested. Let's get back in the game.
Yeah, they all walked back slowly, went, what are we doing? Like,
It's safe to go back, and the casino's still open. What the fuck? Okay, it's
yeah, I thought they were
feel
gonna
me,
shoot us.
give
Yeah.
me give me a stack of chips
I
again.
thought the pit boss was gonna break our legs. Yeah. I mean, it might be, or it might just be back to the singularity, be it the cultural, be it the fourth turning, the how and whatever the fuck. It
Well,
might
there
be.
are times in history where it gets real fucking ugly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get that.
I mean, super fucking ugly. Here's a stat for you. Steven Pinker's book, The Better Angels Among Us. Have you read that one? You've read
Mm.
almost every book that I know
No, I haven't read that one.
of. He makes the argument per capita, life has got more and more civilized, even through the 20th century, even though we had
Yeah.
world wars. One of the stats that really struck me, he describes in one region of the book all the ways they used to punish people in the Middle Ages. And as he said, I mean, they're horrific to the point you can't read very much before you have to put the book
Oh no,
down
no.
because it's so
Inquisitional
bad.
shit is fucked.
It's really awful.
It's hard
And
to read.
he says, I could be standing right in front of Adolf Hitler and I wouldn't think of doing that. Right. But at one point he said the stat, he said there was something like a 26%, an estimated 26% chance in the Middle Ages that you would die a violent death. Now,
Jesus
given
Christ.
given how much Mother Nature was working to kill you unviolently
Yeah.
with plagues and
Yeah.
earaches and everything else that they couldn't cure,
Unpasteurized milk.
26% violent death. Holy shit.
You live in a violent place if
Now, the other thing, I've had these epiphanies, like I was watching some 1720 Hudson Bay TV series, and a guy's a super dick. And I go, this is not realistic. I'll tell you why. Because super dicks would walk around the corner, some guy would club them over the head, drag them in the woods, and leave them.
yeah.
You had to behave in a way that you didn't die.
Yeah.
And being a super dick wasn't the best way to survive. There was something of you had to be tribal. Jordan Peterson, in a clip I saw the other day, said that the dominant male, he doesn't like the term dominant, in a chimpanzee troop is not the biggest one. It's not the most aggressive one. It's the
No.
one that can maintain a social cohesion.
Yeah. You can't go too far. You can't go too far.
And they told another story. These are just nuggets. This is just random Dave going off the reservation. He talks about how zebras and why they have stripes. And you know the drill. They want to cull out one zebra to kill it and wear it down, the lions. But if the zebra gets back in there, they can't figure out which one they had, so they have to start over.
Oh,
Right?
whoa.
He says, so humans have seen that too. So someone trying to study zebras, they got clever and they said, okay, here's what we'll do. We will slap some red paint on one. We'll get close to one and maybe with a paintball gun or something, smack them with a bright red sploosh so we can watch that zebra and how they behave. He says, you know what happens? The lions eat them
Ooh.
because the lions could say, there's the zebra we were chasing. So
Uh,
they could keep calling out that zebra. I'm going, holy fuck.
is
You know
that?
how Jordan talks about rat studies where they're cooperative and even the more dominant rat, even the less dominant ones occasionally win because they won't play if they don't occasionally win. So if
Yeah.
you watch dogs playing, they give up the ball to each other. My dogs,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
four of
Yeah.
them, they rotate food bowls. No matter how clever I am at laying out food bowls in a rational way, I'll look around and they've switched food bowls. And that's sharing a kill, right? That's sharing a kill.
You might really like a guy I've had on here several times before, Ian Burlingame, former Special Forces, former finance, really eclectic background. He calls it the Eternal War.
Yeah.
Yep. He says there are
Keep
two
going.
he says there are two groups of people, and that there's only ever been two groups of people, responsibles and resentfuls. And ultimately, though, both of them want the game to keep going. So they'll try to kill each other, and power will wax and wane over the millennia, but they want the game to keep going. So
Right.
we're in like 15 overtime and we're scoring, but at the same time, you're like, I don't want the game to fucking end. What am I gonna do if the game ends? So there is this weird almost,
Well, so this is why there's such things as limited hangouts, for example.
yeah, it's
We need to have Tucker Carlson.
yeah, and exactly. No, exactly. And so you might have, sorry, there's a fire truck going by. You then have to wonder, do they let Trump in, or do they kind of start to simmer down on the World War III or start to button up the border because they're like,
Well,
"Ooh,
here's what I noticed in the election. I think I noticed a couple of months before Trump won. I thought I noticed that the press was backing away from
they,
hacking him.
they did," and you and I specifically talked about that on one of the
Oh,
ball.
we did. We
Yeah,
did.
you could know. You and I both said it. We're like the fact that like AOC was coming out and like damning Biden in a couple months leading up to the election for the Gaza shit, but like they should be closing ranks. Or the fact that like MSNBC was like, here's what a second Trump term looks like. You and I, and maybe even Luongo and Clinton, were all like, we were all making note of that. We're like, something has shifted at the base of the power. Something has
And
shifted.
it told me that maybe that they were not going to rig it. And then what happened is there was not a shred of evidence of rig,
Hmm,
not a shred.
none.
That there were reports that night of the election of tractor trailers homing in on the voting booths or voting in on the counting centers. But then they just drove by, and the claim is that Republicans protected it, and so they couldn't get away with it. But I didn't buy it. I think they just said Trump's going to win.
I think they might have looked at it and gone, the amount we would have to put in to prevent this.
Right. I think they
It
decided
would
that
destroy.
it's 4th and 15. Let's punt.
I think they're looking at it and they also looking at it and go, it's Trump. We don't want it. In 4 years, he's gone.
Unless he's also a limited hangout.
Unless he's which then kind of gets the whole like when I always look at that and I'm not even opposed to that idea. I don't like brush it away and go, I don't want to think about that. My logic is kind of what I said earlier about like does the maybe the New World Order already seized control 30 years ago? If that's the case, there's nothing really to do, in which case there's nothing really to like talk about. I mean, really the only thing to do, well, it's one of the things I don't let people talk about in the podcast, which is, direct inciting violence is at that point there's really nothing to do but that. So I give it about, honestly, I give it a 20% chance Trump is one of them.
Well, that's been discussed so intensely by so many people.
Yeah, I'd say
Like
20.
I've had several long discussions with Nick Bryant.
But
Um,
yeah, Franklin scandal.
yeah, and I had a 3 hour conversation with him over the phone. It was supposed to be a 5 minute one. It just went on and on and on and on and on. And then I helped set him up with a Zoom group that I'm in, and he gave his talk there. But I'd been on a podcast with him. He invited me, and I didn't know why. And I eventually asked him, and he said, "Well, I'd heard you'd be receptive to some of these ideas." I said, "Okay." Um, but holy fuck, I just lost my train of thought.
What,
Uh,
20% Trump's one of them. Nothing to think
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. So he's dug into it, and he what he can't find, he finds all sorts of connections of Trump with a lot of people in ways that are disturbing,
Sure.
right? But he says, but I can't find any victims who have pointed a finger. Quite the opposite. A number have said there was no sign of Trump.
Hmm.
So Trump appears to have been able to keep his nose clean enough that
Enough.
people ratting out. And I actually get the feeling that Trump, and I say feeling, I'm more qualified now because we're talking about limited hangout, but I get the sense that he has way more a sort of a moral compass than people thought. I think he's a tough negotiator and shit like that, but I think he does have a moral compass that people didn't recognize. There's too many stories of people showing up and saying, "Look, 20 years ago when I got in trouble, he's the only
Yeah.
fucking guy to help me." That
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah. Like Rosa Parks and like fucking Mike
Guys
Tyson.
like Dana White saying, this
Yeah, I know,
Trump
right?
really saved me when no one else gave me the time of day. That sort of thing.
It's really, and I don't remember what book it was. Fuck.
Now, Trump haters probably they're not listening. Let's start with that. But
I was gonna say they're not
they
really.
can't fathom that. Here's another interesting sideline. They've set up psych studies to look at the different sort of political leanings of people and how it influences their ability to steel man an argument. And so they design such that can a right winger put themselves in the shoes of a left winger and vice versa? The left cannot, the right can. And here's a perfect example. You ask a Trump supporter, can you tell me all the things that people hate about Trump? And it's no brainer. You and I could sit there, we can talk for
Yeah.
half an hour about the
Oh
things
yeah.
that make people drive Trump, make that Trump drives people nuts over. You ask a left wing Trump derangement syndrome type, why do guys like Collum, why did they vote for Trump? Why did they support him? And they can't do it.
Fascist.
They just can't fathom it.
Yeah, it's well then that comes back to the creative and critical thinking. Is there's an example of your inability to even look. Like, I totally get it. I can get why
So
people.
why is the left so lopsided? Is that because their thinking is driven more by emotional arguments?
It sounds like it. I mean, because that's how you set up you never set up a communist system by saying we're gonna do it at the barrel of a gun. You say we're gonna liberate everyone. We're gonna
Right,
Yeah, you bring it in with candy. I get it. And it,
right.
and I don't think that inherently makes people on the left evil. I think if your 5-year-old is lured, to a van and you go, why did you go and talk to the stranger? And you go, he said he had candy, or he said, that they always used to warn about this when we were little. They're like, if somebody ever comes to pick you up at school and says your mom and dad are hurt, they sent me to pick you up, say no. But if you're a kid, that makes the person doing it evil? But if a kid goes, well, I went up to him because they said they had candy, it doesn't make it a bad kid. The kid wanted candy. So I don't even necessarily throw all the leftists out where I go, if they voted for this person because they thought that we were getting universal health care, I go, that makes you maybe naive, but that make you a bad person.
Well, so I used to say years ago, before politics went totally toxic, I used to say that the left suffered from too much idealism and the right suffers from too much pragmatism.
Yeah, yeah,
And so when the two parties were sort of battling, but not viciously, then it was kind of like raising children. You need a mom and you need a
yeah,
dad, and there's a division of labor in
yeah.
those two, right? Mom will never kill you. Dad might,
That might kill you.
you know. And there's just various things that the two bring to the story, and it's a potential argument for why adoption by gay couples will not be as effective because you're actually missing the complementary
The yin and
relationship
yang
thing, right? Otherwise, I don't give a shit. I mean, I think having two parents of any kind who actually care about you
is
is
already such
plenty.
a leg up. Is already such
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good.
you're
Yeah,
already a
that's
win, right?
you're
You've already
already
got a win.
starting on fucking third base if you have that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. It might be that they're trying to let a little pressure out of the system, and it's because otherwise the entire game table is going to get flipped, and it's like
Right.
you can't steal the election, buy a weapon, and then shoot them. Like it'd be like, hey man, we're at a powder keg right now. It might be. I also think that the people in power are so psychopathic that they don't care about it. I think they'd rather control it. I think they'd rather destroy the whole thing than lose control. I don't know.
So Walter Kern and Matt Taibbi have this occasional chat. I only see half of it because I won't pay for the other half, but they're brilliant. And Walter at one point said that we are grotesquely underestimating that there are cultures who would rather be totally destroyed than give
Then
up on their
lose.
convictions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said
Yeah.
so when we're sitting there saying, look, we should nuke these guys. These guys are going to go bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on, right? And that's we tend to think in terms of people say, well, no one would ever want to die for a moral cause. I go, well, they do it all the fucking time,
Uh, Black Hawk Down by Mark Bowden, the book that preceded the
right?
movie. It's so funny because he's talking about the skinnies, the Somalis, and they're shooting at the Rangers who are like special forces, and then there's Delta who's just like the type of the spear, and they're always like watch out for the Deltas because they'll kill 100 of you, and like, but it's funny at one point you can see them sort of wargaming what they've learned over the last couple hours, and they go, "We found the weakness of the Americans. They don't want to die." And to them, it was a profound thing. They went, oh, they want to go home. To them, they're like, I don't give a fuck if I die. But
Yeah,
but it was
right.
a profound thing to realize that the Americans
Oh,
were taking
there's a
cover because they
weakness,
didn't
right?
want to. And it's so hilarious to go, yeah, their weakness is dying. But then you go, oh fuck, these people are insane. They go,
Right,
your
right, right,
weakness is. You go, well, yeah,
right.
of course that's my weakness. What is yours? Nothing. Oh God. But I mean, to kind of thought I've had before is, and this goes way back to earlier in the conversation, is it might be that we're looking at this entire energy density thing and energy source wrong in that not even in the idea of like uploading your mind to a computer because I don't think there's like a one-to-one there. I don't think you can like reproduce your mind, but it might be what you could do is slowly replace every organ with a synthetic one. And if it's a synthetic one, then you don't need to have its traditional power sources. Like if you had a synthetic kidney or something, it might run on electricity as opposed to electricity from like the Krebs cycle or pyruvate cycle or
Right, right.
yeah. So if we get to a point where it's like maybe we don't need food, maybe we've cut out the middleman and you just plug in your liver. Once you get to that, you really only need, I would imagine, a greatly reduced, because if you get rid of all the corn you have to grow and all the resources to grow that and to bring livestock to size, as well as slaughtering them and producing and shipping and then eating and then all the sewage, shitting, your refrigerator. If you were just plugging in, man, you could probably just run the country on like a couple jacked up power plants. And it might be that we're looking at this all wrong. Of like, well, where are we going to get the oil? Where are we going to get the food?
So now you're talking about Yuval Harari shit.
Unfortunately, I think I am. But imagine going
Yeah.
back 200 years and being like, in the future, once America hits 300 million people, do you know how hard it's going to be when all of them are riding their horses around? It's like, well, we figure something else out. You don't need the horses. It might be that we're looking at it. We're looking at,
But I do think we don't. Yeah, I again, I think the population drop is potentially a positive thing. It's going to cause decades of discomfort.
but it might be, it seems to be the
So
biggest
I was
silver
inspired
bullet.
enough by this colleague of mine. I sent him an email this morning, said, here's the one thing you haven't considered in your article, the possibility that the idea that a growing population being the necessity is a Ponzi scheme. Because if you need to bring in new players to fund the existing players, that's almost the definition of a Ponzi scheme. And as a consequence, as a consequence, um, maybe we should just let the population shrink and not shit a pickle over it and adapt accordingly. And by that model, potentially the winner is Japan because they're the furthest ahead. I get back to that. I wonder.
Wouldn't be a mistake because they also have a pretty hot fucking average IQ.
Right. And what they lack, the problem they have is they're on a fucking
An
island with no
island, yeah.
resources,
Yeah.
right? So I don't even know how Japan does it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if there's truly no other way, they will absolutely, without hesitation, the power elite will call the population. They won't blink twice.
But it's culling itself.
Well, sure, it's allowed to happen. Allowed.
ZPG used to be the number we always got quoted when I was a kid is 2.2 kids per family. That's ZPG because there's going to be a death toll or an infertility roll. So that's zero population growth. We're running around 1.6. China's at like 1.3. We really are shrinking, potentially shrinking the global population. Now you can't
Or
see it yet, but demographics gets carved in stone at the point of birth, right?
yeah,
So maybe the,
demographics is
the global
destiny.
population hasn't shrunk yet, but we're about to retire a whole bunch of people to the pearly gates.
We've already turned the cruise ship. It's just
We've already turned it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
it could be. Let's just mathematically look at the Ponzi scheme. Nothing says that it has to be humans. It's just seemingly labor. What if we're just hitting a point where you don't have to kill everyone, you also don't have to have kids? What if in 20 years for every human there's 10 robots?
Well,
Does that change
that
the
gets to the
equation?
David Graeber model that says Keynes one time said that we'd only have to work 20-hour work weeks. What I think Keynes was right, but what he didn't call, or that I know of, is that what we would actually do is work 40-hour work weeks and not do shit. And so David Graeber refers to in a book before he died, he called them something like bullshit jobs. There are literally people who go to work who do not know what they are supposed to be doing at work,
So I have a theory about this, and
which is Doge,
I was,
right? Doge
I
is
was
all about that.
I was pontificating the other because this podcast is just me. I'm the scheduler. I'm the producer. I put it up, put it down. I get out the guests. I put together the thumbnails. I do the conversations. I do the research. I find the revenue. 100%. It is just me.
How many hours a day?
I don't know, 11.
Okay.
And then I take one full day off on weekends. But my first weekend day, I normally still work most of the day. I just don't go to the gym, and I don't do a show, but I'm still doing work. Um, but I look at that
What's
show.
the hardest part? What's the part that you say, oh, fuck, if I could get help, this is where I'd get it?
Figuring out how to get it to make money. All the other work, I can do the work. But Irish Catholic, like I can do the fucking or just work myself to death.
Is are herding the chickens we call guests? Is that a problem?
No,
Okay.
you don't ask people when they want to come on the show. You give them a date and time.
Okay.
And if they don't show up, you fucking let them. But even that calculus changes over the years. Early on, when you have a library of three shows, you got to treat each guest like the king. Once you get
Right.
up into your own kind of ecosystem, you are less desperate. You can tell people to fuck off. And then there's cross pollination with other shows that gets easier. And then, I can try to email someone, but if I know someone that's, interviewed them before, that's just a cut to the front of the line. So what used to be a 9 month
Right.
process might be 10 minutes now. The hardest thing is finding, and the easiest way to pay to make money would be to paywall, but then I think you put a natural. You said it earlier. You're like, I listen to them. I never pay for the second half. People don't want to
Right.
fucking do that. Even if you have the
Well,
money, people just
the
don't want to go through the
the
process.
problem, well, it's not just that though. Well, first of all, I have an aversion to auto pays. I'll
Yeah.
auto
Oh
pay my
yeah.
life insurance. I'll auto pay my car insurance. I'll auto pay various things that I want to make sure get paid.
I
But
keep
I
track of the
hate
auto pays on my
subscriptions.
calendar. I let my each month I look at. I go,
Well,
that's
I
today.
use a credit card that's just auto pays.
Yeah.
Now,
Keep track
the
of it. I
other
get it.
problem I have is if I were to write a list of all the fucking people whose content is so fucking good, I'd pay for it. It
Then
would break the bank.
and so I go, you know what? I think so. Me, it's like a stamina thing. I go, if I can keep putting out good content, if I can find a way to pay for it, no matter what way I've managed to, if I can keep it going long enough, eventually your show is just something where somebody one day wakes up and go, yeah, I've been listening to this guy for 10 years. This is my show. This is my comfort. This is my blanket. I know what he's gonna do. It's the thing I throw on at work. So to me, it's more of like I just have to keep it alive. And so I get money in like unconventional. It's like a wealthy like woman once found that she's like, I love your show. She just gave me $1,000 a month for like 10 months. Like I didn't earn that. She just loved the show. And I told her, I was like, it doesn't make enough money. It's all for people that are willing to pony up. Eventually you hit a critical mass where you go, maybe I only get a penny per thousand views, but if you get 100 million, if you hit a Rogan level, that's enough to keep it running.
Right.
My point is though, and right now it's at like the middle path where it's like mostly funding itself, but there's still a lot of like begging, but it's moving away from where it used to be 100% begging. My point is so I do this, and then I'll go on people's shows. I love going on people's shows. It's fun, whatever. Tiny shows, big shows. But a lot of shows I'll find that are much smaller than mine. Done a lot less episodes, a lot less notable guests,
Right.
a lot less frequently. Whatever. Just objectively, I would say quantitatively, are less than mine. And they have a studio, they have a light guy, they have a video
Right.
guy, they
Right.
have a scheduler. Even if
Ow.
these people are getting paid, not even on salary, not even minimum wage, even if you're giving these people $10 a day to just do it on the side, I do it on the side. Where is that coming from?
I don't know.
Do you already have a ton of money and a podcast is your side thing? And it got me thinking because then I'll go on these shows and I'll be like, I don't do any of it and I barely keep it going. And I know for a fact that I put out better shows more frequently than them. So where the fuck is this coming? Who's the rich uncle? Who's
Mhm.
and it's made me conclude,
Isn't it often a person who has a 9 to 5?
no. They're like, I do this show. I'm like, do they have a rich husband and this is just what keeps the wife busy? I don't know. My point is there's no way in hell they're earning their keep from the podcast, which has got me thinking about jobs in general, about how much of it is just horse shit, like you said. And the best I can conclude is that it's a form of fidget spinner or daycare for adults so we don't aggregate into huge groups and start usurping power and setting up our own fiefdoms. I
No,
think that's what most of the,
it's bred in circuses.
but not in the idea of the traditional of like, yeah, that's what football is. Like, no, 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 no. That's what the economy is. Most people
Right.
don't do anything. Well, you're keeping that person occupied instead of having, you don't want 100 million unemployed men. That's how you get standing armies with one or
That's
two,
exactly right.
you with
That's
one
exactly right.
charismatic leader, and now all of a sudden they're, I mean, now was it inside probably, but like that's how you get Wagner marching on Putin. If you got a bunch of guys
Right.
with guns who start fielding themselves, I think that much of the economy is just
Well, so I've been harping on the fact that the mega companies, the Mag Sevens and stuff, don't bring much to the table. This is not U.S. Steel at the turn of the century. This is
no,
not. It's
it's
not General Motors. It's not.
no,
They're
they're
not
not
pumping vast tonnage of
physical
oil out of the
things. They're
ground,
not
right?
melting and
That
smelting
that
and
and and and if Facebook went away today, I can't tell you what's lost. Now, there's people who love Facebook, but is it that big? And I think the answer is that Facebook must get a fuck ton of money out of the theft from the government.
yeah.
They've got to be getting huge subsidies from um, from the deep state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You get kickbacks from the NSA. Hey, you give us everything, and in turn, you'll get,
Right.
you don't have to pay that. And so you start looking at that, and you go, and the people at the top, they're not exactly unthrifty. They're not exactly okay with giving money away. So why would they allow these bullshit jobs to the tune of tens of trillions of dollars? Well, they might go, yeah, that it does cost a lot of money, costs a lot of more to put down a nationwide insurrection.
Right.
They might just go, yeah, no, this is better than the National Guard.
This is
Is
like
a nine
Catherine
to
Austin Fitts discussion of what
the kill box.
$20 trillion missing from the Pentagon.
Yeah, it's so you have to wonder, like, no, no, this is a military operation. It's just dressed up as DoorDash.
That's right.
But
That's right.
it is MK Ultra, but it's
Well, the
just
other thing
oh
is we really are on an unsustainable path where we've got people. COVID, for example, they gave us a ton of cash. Us, not me, but
yeah.
society got a ton, and so they actually kind of flourished. And then after that, they cranked up their credit cards, and then they cranked on the private debt markets by doing layaway. You could buy like Taylor Swift tickets and pay in 4 installments, right? That's nuts. That's crazy, right? And I think we've reached the end of that rope, and so there is a day of reckoning coming soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, the next recession is going to bring in big unemployment, and there is always a next recession. Now, I argue that we've been in a recession for many years because they're misreading the inflation numbers by enough that the 2.5% GDP growth that they keep claiming is probably inflation corrected, more
Printed.
like negative 1%. And people say, well, that can't be. You don't stay in a recession for 20 years. And I say, well, the British Empire was in one for about 100 years. So let's go there, right?
It might be that there is a day of reckoning, and they might be going, let's use this. Maybe that's how you destroy the system and you usher in a new system.
Well, and then therefore you don't know even if the shit that's being done to us is coming from the guys that are supposed to be leading us and they're fuckheads, or from some sovereign state out there, right? So you really, the Soviets, they said, look, we didn't spend much time spying on you guys. We spent all our efforts to shape your society
Hmm.
and
Maybe
to
it's
modify your behavior, right? That's Yuri Bezmenov
yeah,
talking, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that makes sense. So you're not going to defeat the United States by pulling battleships up to the shore. You're going to do it by getting us to consume ourselves, like everyone becoming transgender and flabby and eating shitty food and bitching about things that are stupid and fighting with each other. And
And that, and then it's like sometimes it just seems like it's all so far above us, and it's such a
well,
foggy.
that's what's frustrating me. That's what's
It's
frustrating me lately.
is you go, you don't want to go head in the sand because I think it is important to be literate, and if you can improve the future, it's your obligation to. I also enjoy the critical thinking aspect of it. But then there's a lot of it where it's like, is Trump one of our good guys or is he them? And is this AI or is this China? I'm looking outside and just seeing like birds fly by. I'm like, there is some real logic to at some point being like, I'm gonna try my best, but I'm gonna step outside and enjoy the sunset tonight. There's a lot of like,
Right.
hey,
Or
it's
as Warren Zevon said, enjoy every sandwich.
yeah, it's so there might be like if imagine if you go back like 300 years, not even 250, and they're like, "Do you think revolution?" Let's say it's 1726. They're like, there might be revolution soon. If you go back and be like, yeah, it doesn't happen until 1776, and like most of you die anyway, and then even then it takes another 2 centuries for it to be like an empire. They might just be like, oh, like yeah, man, go to the pub. I'm not saying don't
Right,
like, work on yourself. Like by all means, I'm
right.
not saying like black pill. Like no, read, you go to church if that's your cup of tea. Farm,
Enjoy every
fall,
sandwich.
fall in love,
Enjoy every sandwich.
and stay literate. But hey, man, go. You and your buddies are gonna go fucking drink and make fun of
Well,
the.
I've also, for decades now, had this theory that the wealth, in some sense, is counterproductive because if you look at what rich people do, they do things like go to Puerto Rico. What poor people do is they get together with their buddies and they go camping. And it's a more wholesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you don't go to a fancy restaurant. You sit there and you throw burgers on the grill in your backyard with your buddies. There's nothing better than throwing burgers on the grill with your buddies.
yeah,
And that's what you do when you don't have the money to buy yourself a vacation.
yeah. There isn't much. There really is nothing much better than like
But that's what
getting
COVID
outside.
fucked up. That's what COVID fucked up.
Yeah,
And that's what the battling where your buddies might have voted for fucking Harris instead of Trump, and therefore you're going to be fighting by the end of the goddamn party.
that's why I think for me, it's like with siblings or with friends, the ones that are as equally interested in maintaining the beauty of a friendship as you are the ones who, like you, will go out of their way to sidestep and not bring up politics.
Or the other thing you can do, what I general policy is I try to figure out who they hate and agree with them.
Or I do that too. I do that too. Oh,
I mean,
chameleon. That's the
and
easy. That's path of least resistance.
but this is easy and you just because some decent percentage of their points are well taken. There's
Sure.
nothing that says you have to fire back and win.
Yeah. Oh no,
You can
chameleons.
just say, "Oh yeah, Trump, he's annoying as shit, and this Doge is not doing what I'd hoped," and and they always agree that getting rid of the woke shit's good, so you find common ground there,
Yeah, and then you just pivot away. Get it like no,
right? Which
chameleon is path of least resistance. I go, yeah, Trump is a fucking
and you don't
idiot.
have to lie to be a chameleon. You just have to say, "Look, the arguments I'm going to make with this person are the one." My wife occasionally wants to send an email to someone, and sometimes she asks me to proof it, and it's all fucked up. And I said, look, you have to ask what the purpose of the email is. And
Uh-huh.
if it's what I think it is, this is not the right email.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't you know ask what my goal is and write what's needed to achieve that goal.
See, I'll go one step further. You said you don't even need to lie. I'll lie through my fucking teeth. If my goal is to sit around a bonfire with more of my left-leaning cousins, what do I care? I'll be like, I'll just say bland, be like, oh, fuck Trump. And you know what? Elon is, I don't give a shit who he is. He's a billionaire. He doesn't care about me. And then you just pivot
Right,
because my goal is to hang out with people I love.
right.
Now,
And
if it's on a show and it's about intellectual
you're
honesty,
not
it's different.
lying. You are simply selectively
But my point is I will outright lie. I'll say I voted for Biden. I don't give a shit. If my goal is like I want to hang out with my cousins, life is short.
Well, what I do is I go the other way where I'll say, look, if this whole Trump thing doesn't work, I'll be the first to apologize to you,
Yeah.
right? Things like that, right? I'll say, look, right now, I have no trouble admitting that the whole thing's looking pretty sketchy. The
Hmm.
the the honeymoon period has ended.
Uh-huh.
Now it's started our fighting in Stalingrad, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of it I just
And Doge is looking a little weaker now. And I spotted right away, I'm going, wait a minute, you can't just find where the money was wasted. You got to get it back.
yeah.
You got to stop it. You got to get it back. And by the way, we also want to know who did it.
Yeah.
We do want to know if USAID was being pilfered by the DNC. We want to know,
Yeah.
right? And I can live without punishment, provided we at least out them.
Well, you wonder who has the Polaroids.
Yeah, that's well, and it gets back to that. Who has
If
the
it doesn't make
Polaroids?
sense, you go, how come this doesn't? Maybe there's a weapon system you don't know about. Maybe
And
that's
I hate the topics you cannot talk about. Well,
oh,
vaccines. Let's start with that. You can't, regardless of your stance, you can't talk about Israel.
yeah, you're not allowed to hold them a sovereign country. You can't hold their feet to the
And
fire.
by the way, I occasionally will say to someone, say, look, Israel is a government, and you got to be able to criticize the government. And by the way, I've never met a government that was good, so let's go there.
Yeah,
And but you got to be able to have that conversation, and you're not allowed to have it now. When was the last time you turned on the TV where five big brain people on Sunday morning sat there and banged away on the pros and cons of that war?
oh yeah,
It
no, no.
it doesn't exist. It
Which to
doesn't exist.
which to me outright tells me that there's something fucked because we weren't allowed to talk about
That's right.
COVID and we saw it at the beginning of the Ukraine thing. It was just propaganda 24/7, and we now see it for what it is, just money laundering and a meat grinder. So I tend to from my own life experience. It's not even like what I heard from Grandpa. My own life experiences of the last 5 years tend to tell me if there's something you're not allowed to talk about, then you should not
That's
be
where the
fucking
problem is.
talking about it. And if everyone says, "Well, I
It's like the
stand with
Republicans
Israel,"
refuse. The Republicans refuse to talk about January 6th and about the rigged elections.
how was that not the? How come on January 21st, Trump didn't come out and go, "Here's my committee on the rigged election. Here's my committee on the assassination. We're gonna find these treasonous
That's
motherfuckers as
exactly
president."
right. That's
Not a
exactly well.
word.
Here's the
Or
key
maybe it's
though.
happening behind the scenes.
And if there's one group that should be doing their job quietly, it's DOJ.
Yeah,
Right? They should not be out there
publicized
making
for sure.
proclamations, right? It is very hard to build a clean case against someone. So if the DOJ is really doing their job in the most thoughtful, sound way imaginable, they should be dead silent right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And they have been dead silent.
It could also be. I also
Whereas Kennedy's been disappointing.
yes, they've got Polaroids.
I
If
think so. Or
nothing else
now
adds up.
Luongo came up with this theory that Kennedy is just playing, chess, and that, for example, when Kennedy supported the MMR vaccine, now he hates the fucking thing,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden he supports it because two people died of measles,
yeah,
and you're going, who's got the Polaroids, right?
yeah.
But what Luongo says, he says no. He knows that in a couple of months there's going to be data that shows that MMR vaccine's fucked, and he doesn't need to fight.
Fair enough. I'm willing to give it a couple months. I
Oh,
could
I am too. In fact, a year from now is when we should do a report card.
I get skeptical when we're like 5 years in and they're like it's happening in secret.
Now,
I'm like, well,
5 years
I'm
is
like,
too
well,
long.
now that just sounds like horse shit that I would say if I was doing something wrong. I'd say it's happening in secret. Don't worry.
So
Trust
I
that.
want to know, for example, that they did dissolve FEMA. I don't want to just hear they pronounced it. Trump got all sorts of headlines based on all these companies said they were going to build a plant somewhere in the United States. And you go, look, you won't even break ground for 4 years. I've been involved in renovations of a floor in a chem building. It takes 2 years. So the gist is he can announce all the plants that are coming, but around 2 years from now, before they're even close to putting a shovel in the ground, they could say, never mind.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to work. And Trump got his headline.
Yeah.
And so I think those promises are total horseshit, but it's better than nothing. At least it's being talked about.
Yeah. It might be that just the global society is such a large cruise ship. It's like 10 aircraft carriers long. That it might be like this is all that can happen. It's just a degree.
Right.
It just
Alex Soros and Huma Abedin.
yeah, we're not yeah, we're not in a cigarette boat that we can whip around. Do you like do
I
the
just pray that Huma Abedin is past the point of reproduction, because if those two bred, you'd end up with
Satan
the
Antichrist?
Exorcist 2.0, right?
Jesus.
It would just be there would be some creepy creature in a rock howling in the night. And the fact that those two got married, I go, that's telling me something so profoundly important.
Alien. Um, but yeah, Dave, for right now, I say we wrap this up. And
Okay.
I don't even know what fucking time. We've almost gone for 3 hours. Jesus. Two and a half.
2.5, yeah.
Wow.
I tend to do that.
I
I
thought
tend
we
to
were at
do that.
one. I thought we were at 1.5. Um, yeah, but for everybody listening, go to the description, go follow Dave on Twitter. Anything else you want to plug?
Well, my year in review from last year is on sale at Amazon. So if free at peak prosperity, which is my pinned tweet, is too cheap, you can go buy it at Amazon for $20, hardcover. And Bob Moriarty paid for the prep of it, paid to have it, formatted correctly, and then all I have to do is click send, and up it goes. And so
Yeah.
I'm not a great marketer of this thing, but a year in review that goes hardbound 4 months later doesn't strike me as a great marketing approach in general. So I market it. If you want to buy it, buy it. It's a fun read, I think. I got like a 500,000 off it. I think 500,000 clicks
Hey.
off it, but a click doesn't mean someone read it. I mean, a click just means they open up, said they see a picture of some guy fingering the balls of a tiger and go, okay,
Yeah,
I'm done.
there it is.
There it is. So, but no, I don't have anything else to pump. At one point, I was doing a fundraiser for someone close to me who had a stroke, and we raised a ton of money from Twitter. So I'd like to thank the Twitter
Beautiful.
sphere. And I said, look, to the extent that I've never asked for a penny, besides my marketing of my book, um, I said, if you would donate through Patreon to me, please go to this fundraiser and donate even $5.
Oh yeah.
And I think Twitter probably donated probably 40 grand.
That's amazing. That's legitimately amazing.
Well, he had a stroke at 49,
Fuck.
right? And he's a harpsichordist.
Jeez.
And it's not like working with 90% function is that good for harpsichord.
Hmm.
And so it was a worthy cause. And some guy wrote a check for 5 grand. I don't know who he is. He just said, where can I send it? And up popped 5 grand. I go, oh, some guy wanted my opinion on a scientific topic and said, I'll donate $500 if you give me an hour of your time. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you an hour of my time. You don't have to donate. You can decide if you want, but I'll just give you the hour. And I gave him the hour, and then he donated it. Right?
Yeah.
And so Twitter did a great job. The Twitter sphere is despite all the bots, still got good people on it.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that maybe kind of puts in perspective everything we're talking about. It's like, at least I didn't have a stroke. And I'm not trying to be
That's right.
I'm not trying to
That's
be
right.
funny. At least you go, you know what? Maybe Trump is a member of the deep state and the AI already runs the world. I didn't have I'm 34 and I'm healthy. Take the win. Take the
Right. Right. The phrase "at least we have our health" is a pretty important
It
concept.
legitimately is though. I mean, like, yeah. Um, but yeah, this will be up on Spotify in like 30 minutes. So I'll email it to you if you could tweet that. And
That'd be great. That'd be great.
all right, dude. As always,
And
Dave.
you emailed the other one, the one I asked for, the pedophile
Yeah,
tracker from.
yesterday I sent that in the
Yeah, if
thread.
you think of another I had to watch, send it to me and I'll pop it up on Twitter.
Sure. No, the one yesterday was really, really good.
Well, just don't hesitate to send me shit.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I
No, I
will
will.
pop it up.
I
My
appreciate
12
it.
followers.
I appreciate it. That's fucking more than me. All right, Dave. I appreciate your time,
Adios.
brother. Always a pleasure to talk. Thank you so much.